So it's been several days since we heard about the National Solar Observatory closure in Sunspot, New Mexico, and still I get emails. Getting emails, getting tweets, messengers, all kinds of things on my Facebook about any and all, follow-up stories or perhaps any information I can give you about why the FBI, black helicopters and SUVs took over the facility and shut down the area post office. Kind of strange, isn't it? Turning it into a ghost town. Well, I guess it's back in operation now. Back in operation. If several people, of course, they went to the site. Some people were able to just walk on in after it was abandoned, and now apparently it's reopened. Well, there have been many theories about what happened, and we had reports on the show, including the infamous Sam call, telling us that there was some sort of solar plasma extraction that was recorded there, and that it would certainly be seen later that weapons like HARP and programs like Hammer and Smack were being used to create mini CMEs in order to force multiply 9 Hurricane. Well, it certainly was a compelling report. Of course, people stick by their own conspiracy theories, but the thing that he said, what I thought was interesting, was that he said, pay attention to Hurricane Florence, if you remember. He says, pay attention to Hurricane Florence. She's going to give you a surprise, and there'd be a huge surprise for everyone. Well, many were saying that the surprise had to be that the storm stalled over the Carolinas. It basically got onto the water, it died down before it hit the Carolinas, and then it hit and stalled. It just stayed there. Well, I just found out something today that's really interesting. I guess that a piece of Hurricane Florence was still in the Atlantic, and apparently it's showing signs of becoming yet another hurricane. Now, I don't think they're going to be calling it Florence, but there's a 20% chance that Florence has given birth to a baby storm, which again would be a rare event. Okay, so here you have a hurricane giving birth to a baby hurricane. That hurricane becomes a big hurricane, and once again, it'll form like it did in the Atlantic before and possibly hit the Carolinas again. But that's just a 20% chance of that happening. They're watching it. They're watching the system now, and I think it's looking like a tropical depression at the moment, but 20% chance will become a full-on hurricane. So probabilities are that it won't. But if it does, then that's the major surprise, I would say. Okay, so just looking at the maps and kind of figuring it out, 20% chance of this remnant of Florence turning into Florence 2, if you will. So I guess we'll have to wait and see if this happens because, as with any paranormal or strange story, you should never cancel anything or you should never dismiss any theory because things can turn at any given moment, making a liar out of you or making a liar out of whoever makes the prophecy, or you can become a prophet. It's like, you throw the darts and you get something and, ride with it, man. Ride with it. You can't, that's why all these doomsday prophets say, the world's not going to end. One day they'll be right. And when they're right, you're all going to be laughing at them. Now, I guess you can be right if you keep picking at it. If you keep stabbing at something, eventually you get it right. Even a clock's right, once or twice a day. So, like I said, we're going to wait and see what happens with this, event with Hurricane Florence and whether or not the remnant has turned into a tropical depression and whether or not it's going to turn into a hurricane again. And if it does, then it's Florence too. Florence has given birth to a little baby hurricane, and I've never heard of that before, really. So stay tuned for that. With a lot of things that happen, I think that a lot of the time, you can always chalk it up to synchronicity or coincidence that these things happen. Much of what weathermen do is estimated guesses. I mean, I always tell people that, I don't know if you know anything about my background, but I studied meteorology for a long time. Of course, weighing in on whether or not to be a meteorologist or a mortician or whatever I wanted to be. I was like going through all the things I thought. Meteorologist would be the dream job because I just loved the weather. When I was a kid, I had the you make a barometer out of a balloon. I don't think anybody's ever done that, but what you do is you can take a balloon, you pop a balloon, and you stretch it over a jar, a mason jar, and you put a rubber band on it. And then when you put like a pencil or like a match or something, and you can watch as the low pressure will happen and the balloon will sink into the bottle, and then high pressure, and it'll come back with the bottle. You can do the experiment too by putting the jar in the refrigerator or in the freezer, and the cold air will bring the balloon down, and you can put it in you put the bottle in boiling pot, and you can see the balloon will expand. So it's like the idea of air pressure. So you're making a barometer. We did that. I made a baby barometer once. I made a nephoscope, which was kind of like putting a rake on a stick. And what it did is you position it under a cloud. And if you looked at it, it was kind of like a central point. You could look at it and you could see how a cloud was moving. So you could figure out where the cloud was coming and how it was going to, if it was going to hit you or if it was going to go someplace else. You pretty much figure out. So I did that kind of a rake type thing I made. And then I made, I made the wind. I went a wind vane. And just a number of different things. I had my own little weather system, my own little weather center at my house. And it was just like weather for me was an obsession. I just loved it. And I wanted to be a storm chaser. And so, I decided, though, not to for some reason. And I know a lot about weather and atmospheric conditions and stuff. And so that's why I think one of my biggest topics I talk about is geoengineering, climate change, that sort of thing. But it's not because of the fact I believe in man-made climate change. I believe in climate change, but not in the technocratic way that they tell you climate change exists. And so when people come after and say, I don't know why you don't believe in climate change. Well, I do believe it. I just don't believe in the technocrats and how they explain it because they're morons. And their science is flawed. And, I'm not going to be akin to paying through the nose for carbon credits when I know this is all a farce. It's all a scam. And so people treat it like a religion, and it's not a religion. And see, that's the thing is that, when you're dealing with weather forecasting, and you're guessing. Everything's a gamble in weather forecasting. And so I tell people, well, now I'm a weatherman still because I'm not forecasting the weather. I'm basically forecasting what may happen in the news, what may happen in the future. It's not that I'm a prophet. I just take history and science and surrounding stories, and somewhere in there is a pattern. And when I see the pattern, I report it. So if I'm seeing a pattern, then you know that if I'm talking about this, eventually it's going to somehow ripple for the next few days, weeks, months, whatever. And sometimes right on the money. So, if I predict a thunderstorm and the thunderstorm hits, I'm the storm crow. And if I predict a thunderstorm and we only get a little trickle of rain, then people go, you're an idiot. Well, okay, guilty as charged. I'm an idiot. But see, you chalk things up to synchronicity. Sometimes you chalk things up to good planning. Sometimes you chalk things up to experience. And this whole situation with Sunspot, getting back to what Sam said, I mean, the media and the FBI are claiming that the federal search warrant that they issued at the center revealed that the National Solar Observatory there in Sunspot was shut down because FBI agents were conducting a computer forensic search for child pornography. Now, the source of child pornography was traced to an IP address used at the observatory, and so a source within the building observed a computer with, quote, not good images on it. That's what the warrant said. Quote, not good images. So an investigation by the FBI revealed that a janitor is the main suspect in the search. However, he's not been charged with a crime, even though his name is on the warrant. So no crime's been, no charge has been filed. The warrant states that the suspect would use the observatory Wi-Fi and a personal laptop to download the child pornography. Well, on September 12th, 2018, the New Mexico State Police found a mystery man who died not too far away from the Solar Observatory, according to the NPS press release, while closing the White Sands, New Mexico park, the monument. Park rangers discovered an unattended vehicle in the Alkali Flat Trail parking lot. And then after searching the immediate area, park rangers expanded their search to the Alkali Flat Trail, where they discovered an unresponsive man about a half mile from the trailhead between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. This is what the press release says. New Mexico State Police responded to White Sands National Monument and then confirmed the man was dead upon their arrival. There was no report that the man was connected to the investigation of the child porn or whatever went on at Sunspot. When FBI agents told local law enforcement to stand by after the closure and evacuation of the National Solar Observatory in Sunspot, the Otero County Sheriff was confused and said that he felt that the FBI was, quote, chicken poop, they were just chicken, in not allowing the police to be involved. This created suspicion in the local area. Now the child pornography story is the official story, and people are just not buying it. Now, would you? I mean, come on. Black helicopters, men in black, FBI, search warrants, what else? Oh, shutting down the post office, shutting down the town. I mean, come on. I mean, do you buy it? I don't buy it. And now all that's left is conspiracy theory. And while we still await the verdict on Sam's call to the show, there's some recent news stories that indicate that the solar system is not what we think it is. And so I'm thinking that apparently there are new revelations of CMEs coming, even though we're at the lowest point in sun activity. CMEs are coming. And hypothetical planets have just arrived on the science news sites. Finding hypothetical planets, including, well, we'll tell you what planets they're finding. And who knows? They may even be hinting at the fact that they found Planet X. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
This is Ground Zero on FM News 101.
Just got this sent to me. Just want to let you know that this is from Mumbai, India. A Jet Airways flight from Mumbai to Jaipur was forced to turn back after around 30 passengers complained of nose and ear bleeds due to low pressure in the cabin. The B-737 aircraft with 166 guests and 5 crew landed normally in Mumbai. Guests complained of ear pain, and soon that they were bleeding from their ears and their noses. Man, I'll tell you, it's hell to be flying these days. You know, if you're not worried about getting something making you sick, you're going to bleed through every orifice in your body when you're on a plane. That's not good. Not good. And see, that's the thing, is that, you know, all of these things are happening in patterns. And so if you're well aware of patterns, if you're well aware of what's happening, you pretty much figure out the truth. Pretty much. Or come damn close, you see. And then that's the point. The closer you get and the more you're involved and the more you see and the more you start being analytical about it, you can pretty much figure out that, first of all, the story out of Sunspot's fake. It's not real. I'm sorry. You don't call in all the artillery for child pornography. You just don't. I mean, and besides, the police and the Otero Sheriff's Department probably could have handled that on their own, then referred it to the FBI. So the FBI shows up and they shut down everything for some janitor who's watching kiddie porn. I don't buy it. Just don't. And then they find that dead guy out there near White Sands National Monument. Nobody has any report about that. But that happened. So, like I said, all that's left is all the conspiracy theory. And so while we're awaiting the verdict on what happened, and I don't think we're going to find out truthfully what happened there. And I think there's so much involved with this. You know, you hear about what Sam said about the sun. And yes, of course, there was a crack in the magnetic field. And we did have a few CMEs. I have more people sending me information saying that during that time frame, they've been having power failures, phones failing. These are the things that mean that we've been having either a Carrington event, and they didn't want us to know about it, or something is happening in space, something amazing, something terrifying, perhaps. I don't know. Something is happening in space, and there was a reason why they had to shut down the Sunspot site. Or, and then there's another reason why a lot of these sites like Soho and others, the solar observatories, all were down. Their feeds were down. You couldn't get any information on them. So no one could get any information about the coronal black hole. That was just the last thing that people saw on the internet. Other people were sending me pictures of what appeared to be UFOs coming out of the sun. But I don't think they were UFOs. I think those were the plasma fragments. Because, I mean, to have anything show up like that, it have to be bigger than the Earth. I don't think people understand that when you see these things that look like UFOs or what have you, these things are bigger than the Earth. Now, I'm not saying that UFOs can't be bigger than the Earth, but these are about, small planetoids or planets or what do you want to call them coming out towards the planet. And they break down in space. It takes them those millions of miles to get here, and they break down into smaller particles, and they can be harnessed. They can be harnessed, and I don't know what they use them for, but we have axioms being used for Things like dark matter, the experiments at CERN. I mean, if you believe what Sam says, HAARP, SMAC, and Hammer, and these are things that still need to be explored. But what was really difficult about all of the information was when Christopher Fontenot was on the program and he had a clearance in the Navy for this type of stuff. When we told him about Hammer and SMAC, he says, "I don't comment on top secret projects." And then a chill went up my spine. You don't comment on top secret projects. Because I told him, I said, we're going to discuss this. And he said to me, he says, I don't really feel you should, but, it's your show. So I asked him the question, and he basically gracefully said, I do not comment on top secret projects. So it's hard to find information on that stuff, I'm sure. Very hard. But, so, now we have reports, new revelations about coronal mass ejections. And there are a few hypothetical planet stories that have hit the desk today. And even though the sun is in the least active period of its 11-year cycle, solar minimum, the corona is still vulnerable to the dark holes we've talked about. They open up inside the sun's atmosphere. And it just seems that the sun was showing this huge black coronal hole on the day of the closure at Sunspot. And there were observers that claimed that they were able to extract images of the UFOs, of course, and then, of course, the solar particles, the ones that are larger than the Earth. And some even claimed that a planet, or let's just say this, they said that a sphere, a silhouette of a sphere, was seen crossing in front of the sun before the closure. So what does that mean? Well, of course, rumors spreading around about Clyde. You're not talking about the obvious thing that's happening. And even D. Michael Sweeney told me that, or Michael Sweeney told me. He said, I need you to talk about Planet X. And I thought, that's a little bit of a stretch. I don't know. But guess what, guys? Planet X is on my mind today because the science reports, and my wife even called me about it, said they found a new planet. And I'm going to tell you about it. It's kind of funny because the planet has kind of a science fiction name. You may have heard of it, Planet Vulcan. I'll tell you about that coming up on Ground Zero. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back. Hey, we're going to be posting some pictures soon of me holding two of my favorite things to read. One is my new book, Transhumanism, Transhuman Substantiation, available at Amazon, and the new Paranoia. Paranoia magazine, of course, Ron Patton, publisher, and Olaf Phillips, of course. And they're available now at Amazon. Just type in Clyde Lewis, and then you'll find them. You'll also see me holding up. I'm very proud of the books. We had a shipment come to us so we could have them in hand. But a lot of people have already bought the books on Amazon, and they've already given great reviews. I'm very happy about that. So thank you so much for all your support. Thank you for the reviews. And more books available. Just go to Amazon.com, type in Clyde Lewis, and there you'll find them. Certainly help out the show, and it certainly shows your support. Thank you so much for buying the books and giving us your support. So going back to Sunspot, going back to what all the speculation was about, and weather war, and whether or not Florence is going to have a baby, whether or not, there's so many crazy things. But one of the things that I really didn't focus on, and I really didn't focus on any of the conspiracy theories that were rolling around on Reddit after Sam called. And now we get the information, and that even the police department doesn't believe the FBI. But it's weird because there were a number of stories that were surfacing after the closure about a man dying or a man being found dead near White Sands Monument, which is near the area, found dead. They don't know if he had any relation to the situation that was going on there. We have images floating around the internet that show fragments or maybe even UFOs leaving the sun. Bizarre. Okay. We have footage going around of what appears to be a sphere, that it's occluding the sun, which is also weird. And then we get a report that scientists have found a new planet, or they found a planet that was a hypothetical planet that's been talked about for decades, and that is planet Vulcan. Now, this was even before Star Trek, okay? For the longest time, scientists have speculated that the solar system had an extra planet. And for centuries, hypothetical planets have been speculated about, and the idea that we once lived in a binary solar system. That's also something that if you talk to a serious scientist about, they say, we don't live in a binary solar system. But, if you believe the ancient stories of what you read in the Bible and a lot of what you see, like, for example, in Star Wars, there's a lot of hinting there of, binary solar systems and possible planets that, we're not aware of. And it's just fun to kind of look at what they're doing as they're doing the exploration and the study, right? So people are thinking, well, obviously they shut down Sunspot because maybe they saw Planet X, because a lot of people are saying they're taking pictures and they're getting a peek at Planet X. I don't know if those pictures are showing Planet X. They may be showing a reflection of something. They may be showing something else. But given the benefit of the doubt, we're seeing something that is anomalous in the sky near the sun. I don't know if any of you out there who are hearing my voice right now have taken pictures and saw anomalies near the sun. But now's your time to shine, because it just looks like Planet X certainly has always been a topic of, fringe science. And this expectation of a rogue planet has persisted for many decades, despite the fact that NASA has denied that the planet even exists. Undaunted, though, some of the greatest minds in science have been saying for a long time that a planet, Planet 9, will be seen, which raises the hopes for those that believe that Planet 9 is really Planet X. The term Planet X has deep roots and deep meaning in history. If you look at the history of astronomy, you can't just erase the fact that Planet X has not been on the minds of scientists going all the way back to the 1840s. I mean, you go back to the discovery of Neptune in 1846. Neptune was Planet X at one time. Some oddities were found in the orbits of Neptune and Uranus, and so astronomers couldn't explain them. In 1903, Percival Lowell, the astronomer who would basically go on to lay the groundwork for Pluto's discovery, he spoke about a ninth planet he called Planet X. He said this could be causing some abnormalities around the orbits of Neptune and Uranus. In 1905, he started using the Lowell Observatory to hunt for Planet X. Planet X is not a generic reference to some unknown planet, but a specific prediction of Lowell's, which led to the accidental discovery of Pluto. So then Pluto was actually part of this whole thing. Pluto has a part in it. Uranus, Neptune all has a part in it. I mean, there was a study that was released last May, for example, that suggests that a rocky object called 2015 BP 519 orbits the sun in a bizarrely high and eccentric path. Now, a planet about 10 times the mass of Earth is out there, 20 times farther out than Neptune. Now, no one is calling it Planet X just yet, but I truly believe that there is some trickle-down disclosure happening where we will have a definite confirmation of Planet X. But as far as the scientific nomenclature will reveal, no Nibiru. There will be a Nibiru. They won't call it Nibiru, I promise you. I mean, having science admit that the planet is actually the mythological Nibiru is probably out of the question. They're not going to call it Nibiru because then, of course, the science fringe will be right, and they don't want that because Nibiru has a lot of myth behind it, you know. There's also a planet in Star Trek, which I think is kind of interesting. If you go to one of the Star Trek movies, they're on the planet Nibiru. I think it was in the second New Generation Star Trek. They're on the planet Nibiru. But see, some scientists, of course, are going rogue. And they're playing in our galactic backyard to find answers about rogue planets. And they're even considering naming Pluto a planet again. Unofficially. Because they're still, drawing together support for putting Pluto in the realms of planet again. But see, that's the thing, is because, the biggest argument was, well, it's somewhere near the Kuiper Belt, so therefore it's not necessarily ours. And the argument, I'd say, come on, give us back Pluto. What's going to hurt us? Why would it hurt us to have Pluto back? We need to have Pluto back. So if Pluto comes back and another planet a 10th planet in our solar system is discovered. Rather than planet 9, they call it planet 10. Then we got the Roman numeral for it coincidentally being X. That, of course, ipso facto becomes planet X, which is truly a great coincidence if you want to talk about coincidences in space. Cosmic dice, roll the dice, and it comes up X, okay? XX. So the simple fact is that Pluto was misclassified when it was first discovered. And science will tell you that it was never on the same footing as the other 8 worlds that we have in the solar system right now. And so the move to make Pluto not a planet in 2006, the IAU, and then they demoted it, it was basically an incomplete attempt to repair a mistake they've made. And science does make mistakes. We know this. But we know also that there's a shell game afoot. Because when you're playing around with whether or not Pluto's a planet, you have to try and change or at least amend your criteria of what planets are. And there was a proposal, I believe, that they were even going to call the moon a planet. Okay, because they're looking at the spherical mass. They're looking at the mountains. They're looking at whether or not you can inhabit the moon or inhabit the place. You know, even Enceladus or even Titan could be planets. See, this is what, I mean, they're thinking of, you know, maybe 180 more planets in our solar system. So, you know, that's, you know, the criteria is saying, well, if you can't name Pluto a planet, what's your criteria? Well, the criteria then would mean that we have 180 worlds in our solar system to deal with, and some of them we don't even talk about, like Sedna or Sidna. They don't talk about Sedna. It's out there. There's just a bunch of them out there they don't name. And so when you got all this controversy, you got the shell game going on, you have to wonder why they're so confused, why NASA and the people who talk about the planets, why are they so confused about what worlds to include and what worlds not to include? I mean, look, today I received a text from Janine, my wife, and she says, are you going to talk about planet Vulcan? And I said, well, I've talked about planet Vulcan before, but I've talked about it in the same breath as planet X, the same breath as Nemesis. I said maybe even Sedna, but I've never really, you know, talked about it as a real planet, just a planet that, of course, has been looked at and people have wondered if it ever existed. And it was something that Roddenberry had called the planet where Spock was from. So, I mean, if you want to know the history, back in earlier scientific speculation, there was a missing planet again that was predicted to have been even closer to the sun than Mercury. And despite the lack of any reliable, consistent observational evidence, it remained as a hypothetical planet until Einstein shot it out of the sky. But they called it planet Vulcan because all the other planets are named after Roman gods. So the new planet, or the hypothetical planet, was fittingly called Vulcan to complete the pantheon. But Vulcan, of course, you know, has always been the speculative planet that once we find it, of course, we'll name it. It was the god of the forge, the metal worker responsible for creating the weapons of the gods. Of course, you know, volcanism, volcanoes and fire and intense heat and all that is Vulcan, okay? And it orbits so close to the sun that it makes it appropriate to call it Vulcan. Now, that was all they said about Vulcan. It's kind of like this. It was kind of like Atlantis in a way. You know, Atlantis is still a mythological place until it's identified. And people are trying to identify it and figure it out. Vulcan was like that too. Vulcan was like the Atlantis of space. So, I mean, it can be tempting to think the story of Vulcan was basically a blunder or some embarrassment in the history of science. But evidence now, science, you know, science does this. And they try to make themselves infallible. But no, I mean, the idea of Vulcan being out there and them thinking about it and saying it's hypothetical, now saying it's real, as they announced today, I think it's amazing what's going on. And some of the hints they're throwing at us about Planet X. 888-673-3700. We'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
More with Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero on FM News 101.
Go to Derek in Massachusetts. Hi, Derek. You're on Ground Zero.
How's it going, Clyde?
Good. How you doing, man?
Good. You mentioned, the reason why I called is you just said if anyone has any stories about solar anomalies, this is your chance to call. So
Sure.
It triggered me.
Sure.
A few years ago, I called about a Jupiter-sized object near the sun.
Mm-hmm.
I heard about it on another conspiracy show at the time. And it's from 2015, I think. If you go to, I put the screener, if you go to skyshipsovercachers.com,
Mm-hmm.
and there's it's by year. And then if you go to 2015, there's probably a dozen images. And one of them would be a blue sphere near the sun. And Mary Joyce is the researcher for that site. And she says that she had a person from Hubble analyze the image, and it's metallic. He believes it's metallic. So it's a Jupiter-sized craft near the sun.
So it was a spaceship?
He doesn't know. I mean, it's a sphere. It's a giant sphere that the guy from Hubble believes is metallic after studying the images, and it's the size of Jupiter near the sun. And it was at the time around 2015 or 2016. I actually thought I was looking at it. I don't know if it was a sky dog or what it was, but it was so compelling that I had to buy welding glasses just to take a longer glance at the sun because I thought I was seeing something near it. But I kind of moved past that, but now you're saying that a planet-sized object might have come out of the sun, or maybe people, because they were looking at the hole in the sun, they happened to spot this Jupiter-sized object that's been around.
Well, whatever it was. I've seen all kinds of things. I saw the coronal hole, which was very intense. Coronal holes form on the sun all the time, but in a solar minimum, they're very rare. So we have a coronal hole. We had the magnetic field crack open. We had all of these, particles coming down that were, interfering with power in some major cities. Like I said, it was almost like a mini Carrington event. We had the explosions in Boston. They were saying it could have been some power failure, power surge. Yeah, go ahead.
I called the other night about, I'm the one from Andover.
Yeah, you are from Andover. Yes, you were talking about. Yeah, and they haven't been able to give us any information as to how all that pressure backed up in the pipes.
I believe that I was talking about the ley lines. I can go on for hours about how their leads are solar veneration and how the cities are designed. I told you about the ley line that crosses.
Yeah, we talked about that last night. I don't want to backtrack again over it, but I'm just saying
it's aligned with the sun, and I believe that's because there are portals that go through the sun. So
they're called Rosen bridges, and sometimes they happen. But the idea of manufacturing Rosen bridge is kind of what Sam was talking about when he was talking about harnessing the sun and creating conduits. People say, I just don't believe we can harness the power of the sun. Of course we can harness the power of the sun. It's easy to do. We have solar power that harnesses the power of the sun, but we have something that is more powerful. It's an antenna meant to grab particles or plasma from the sun. That's easy to do. And that's the thing, is I don't think people can even think for 1 minute that perhaps some sort of a signal or something can be pushed into space that's very powerful that could create maybe a burst or at least the appearance of a sunburst or a CME. I mean, hell, they do it all the time under CERN.
Yeah, I think that they might have part of the secret knowledge that they have is kind of the schedule and location where these portals open up. It's beyond just Einstein-Rosen bridges. It's actually they describe it as literally a portal. And there's NASA who describes it as literally a portal. And
that's what a Rosen bridge is. There's nothing beyond a Rosen bridge. Einstein-Rosen bridge is a portal that opens up. It's like an eddy within the area there. It's kind of like a conduit black hole, and they come and go.
And I think they know where they open, where they connect to the magnetic field of the Earth and into the actual Earth, and they have a schedule of it. They have the locations of it, and that's why they blocked up all the multiple locations, so you can't look at the sun. And they knew that something was going to come out. That's why Sunspot's named Sunspot. That's why there's a facility there.
Well, that's why they're saying now. They're saying now that perhaps more CMEs are on the way. But that's kind of weird, especially when we're in 11th cycle. We're in the 11th cycle. It's supposed to be a quiet cycle, and now the sun is noisy again. Coming up, Richard Hoagland has a lot to say about what's been transpiring in the news as of late. And so we've asked him to come on the program and give it his views on what happened at Sunspot, some of the things going on with space, Vulcan being discovered, Planet X, and also space tourism, which, of course, is something that he wants to get involved with. That's coming up on Ground Zero. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back. So tonight we kicked off the show talking about the false narrative coming out of New Mexico. And it, of course, the Sunspot New Mexico site, I believe, has been reopened now after it was shut down. It was a couple of weeks ago, actually, a week ago. And we were talking about it. We actually had certainly did a lot of coverage on the story. And what was interesting is that people are now, after so many months, or actually so many weeks, we've been getting emails of people saying, well, what are you going to say about it now? You know, what was the verdict? Well, they were saying that the reason why they shut the thing down was because of child porn. And the janitor was downloading child porn on the Wi-Fi there. See, I don't understand how that would be reason. I don't know how that would be reason to actually do that. You know, having the FBI, black helicopters, men in black show up, getting people out of the post office, shutting down the town, all for child porn? I mean, there have been many theories going around. We had many reports on the show. And, of course, the Sam call is something that people are still talking about. What's interesting about the Sam call is that, we had it on the air, and when Sam spoke, he was talking about secret programs using the HARP project and some other side projects with HARP called Hammer and Smack, which he said were scalar. They were using this program to create mini CMEs, or at least to try and extract plasma from the sun. And at that time, we were in the middle of a bunch of hurricanes. And he said, this is a great way to create a weather war. Now, it's certainly a compelling story, compelling report, especially when, he said, well, pay attention to Hurricane Florence. There's going to be some sort of a special surprise for everyone. And, of course, everybody thought, well, the special surprise is that Florence just parked itself over the Carolinas. But now here's an even bigger surprise. Okay, it was reported today that a remnant of Florence off the coast still exists, and it's turning into another tropical depression. And if there's a 20% chance they could turn into a hurricane again. So if that's the case, the big surprise is that Florence had a baby. And that Florence is going to head for the Carolinas again. Another Florence, Florence 2. I don't know if they're going to call it Florence 2, but certainly it's a remnant of Florence. And certainly, like I said, a 20% chance that Florence could give birth to a baby star, which again was, just a rare event. And that's the thing. I guess you have to wait and see here about things because, when someone gives you information like this, and you got to, Christopher Fontenot, when we had him on the show, I said, so what can you tell me about Hammer and Smack? And he says, well, I don't comment on classified projects. And so I realized something. I realized that when Sam called the program, he gave us out some information probably that we weren't supposed to talk about. We weren't supposed to handle. We weren't supposed to touch. And so if it's connected in any way to Sunspot, and they are doing this type of work, that like they do at CERN, where they're using, axioms to find dark matter using sun particles with the Satan. They call it the Satan, okay? Then perhaps he's onto something. But the media and the FBI are claiming the federal search warrant that they saw said that the National Solar Observatory there in Sunspot was shut down as FBI agents were actually conducting a computer investigation into child pornography. Sources say that the child pornography was traced to an IP address used at the observatory, and a source within the building observed computers with, quote, not good stuff on it, or not good images, they said. An investigation by the FBI revealed that a janitor is the main suspect in the search. However, he's not been charged with a crime, even though his name is not on the, even though his name is on the warrant. The warrant does state that the suspect could use would use the observatory Wi-Fi and a personal laptop to download the child pornography. By the way, it was also reported on September 12th, New Mexico State Police found a guy near the facility dead. He was near White Sands National Monument. They found the unresponsive man about a half mile from the trailhead between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. New Mexico State Police responded to White Sands National Monument and then confirmed the man was dead upon their arrival. There was no report that the man was connected to the investigation. When FBI agents told the local law enforcement to stand by after the closure and evacuation of the National Solar Observatory in Sunspot, the Otero County Sheriff was confused and said that he felt as though the FBI was, well, acting chicken poop, basically, and they weren't allowing them to know anything. So now the child pornography story is an official story, but people are not buying it. They're not buying the narrative. I think it's a false narrative as well. So much left to talk about is merely conspiracy theory unless we can find out more about Sam's call and more about, probably get some information from others about, what is happening here, what is happening in the skies, what is happening in space. And it's funny. The only person I can think of that give us a lowdown of what's going on in space and whether or not the observatory was shut down for other reasons is Richard C. Hoagland. And, of course, Hoagland is the principal investigator and founder of the Enterprise mission, as well as the vision and the voice of the other side of midnight. He is the recipient of the Angstrom Medal, the former science advisor to CBS News and Walter Cronkite, and author of the best-selling books The Monuments of Mars and The Dark Mission, The Secret History of NASA. Together with Carl Sagan, Mr. Hoagland co-created the Pioneer Plaque and predicted life on Europa in his groundbreaking paper, The Europa Proposal, published 37 years ago before NASA's announcement. This vision has inspired a whole new generation of pioneers and a whole new generation of people that are eager to listen to what Richard has to say. And so we're very glad to have Richard back on Ground Zero. Richard, welcome back to Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde, thanks. Let me ask you this question.
Okay.
How many people, janitors at how many institutions across the United States tonight do you think are right now downloading porn?
I don't know. I would say that they'd be stupid if they were downloading porn at any facility, especially a facility like an observatory.
There were things go on all the time, sub rosa.
Yeah, they do. Of course they do.
I mean, human nature is human nature. Porn exists because people want it.
Right.
There's a market and a customer.
Right.
Is it illegal? See, it's illegal to send it because then you have to put children in the position of, all that. But exchanging images from websites, downloading on your computer, is that illegal?
Well, there's an iffy, there is an iffy, I guess you could say, law with that about the exchanging. But see, this is the problem I have with this. Is that
well, it didn't say he exchanged. It says he was just downloading. It's like freedom of the press. You look at stuff.
Right.
First Amendment.
Right. But
we don't live in a dictatorship. We don't live in a totalitarian. At least we think we don't.
But why would the FBI step in if the police could have just taken care of it?
Exactly. The local sheriff, Sheriff House, who reminds me so much of McLeod. You ever watch McLeod?
Yeah, I watched McLeod. Yeah.
New Mexico sheriff.
Yeah.
And he says this is a bunch of chicken, and you did it very nicely.
Yeah.
In other words, he feels left out in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you make this? When I was growing up, you say, why make a federal case about it? Why would you make a federal case when the FBI is not investigating Kavanaugh again and this whole, Meshuggah in Washington? Why would you dispatch a team of FBI agents and a Black Hawk to land on the most remote observatory in the United States to look for a janitor who's looking at porn?
Doesn't make sense.
Give me a break.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't.
Did you see the video with the local resident who went up there after this whole thing blew up on the 6th of September?
No, I didn't see it. No.
Amazing guy. Took him and his son went up. They just videoed everything. They ducked under the yellow caution tape. Remember, it wasn't crime scene tape. It simply said caution. And I know our local ABC affiliate guy got stopped, a reporter I've been working with on this. He would not go into the tape.
Right.
So these guys, these civvies went in, and the guy, I forget his name, Romero or something, he shot all over the mountain. It was like a proverbial ghost town in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
You had labs and houses and buildings and the observatories and the, everything is just there, and there's nobody home.
Nope. And now
they walked around.
They reopened it.
There were doors that were open. There was a garage, a big garage they used to refurbish the government vehicles. That was wide open, and literally hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of tools and other gear just sitting in there waiting to be looted and pilfered.
Right.
What kind of security team leaves a facility abandoned, orders evacuation, and none of the employees, the 40 or so people that live and work up there, are talking? That's also really weird. I mean, this is so far beyond the edge of the paper in terms of, it's like Sunspot cover story 2.0.
Well, and it's interesting. It reminds me of that situation, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where in the film they were saying that there was some sort of a gas leak that was killing the cows and killing all the people. Don't go near Devil's Tower. And Roy Neary, the character, says there's nothing wrong with the air, I'll bet you. And he took the mask off just to take a chance. And there was nothing wrong. So it was a cover story brought up by the government to keep people away from the tower. Richard, we're going to be back with more on your thoughts on Sunspot. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Tonight, Richard Hoagland is with us. We're talking about a number of things. Sunspot, the Observatory, what may have been seen, discoveries of a new planet now, perhaps indications that Planet X may be next, and of course, how about space tourism? There's a good topic. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
So, just a little curious about Sunspot, just a little bit about, what do you think would shut down? What do you think would shut down an observatory like Sunspot like that? I mean, what could? I mean, it's not child porn, obviously. So, what do you think it could be?
No, I think the child porn thing is their second attempt. The first attempt was a security issue, unnamed, and the way they left the mountain abandoned, totally open, and then shut down. Remember, the two post offices associated with Sunspot, the one there on the mountain, and then the one 18 miles away up in Cloudcroft. So that all the employees and families that lived up there, who are now, of course, living in hotels at government expense for the last 2 weeks, they had to drive 40, 50 miles over to White Sands to get their redirected mail. So it's like somebody was trying to plug a mail leak coming out of Sunspot carrying something. So I'm focused on the idea that Sunspot, which is a unique facility. There's only one Sunspot solar observatory on the planet. It was built back in the mid-'60s, went into operation the same year we landed on the moon in '69. I remember when I was at the museum in Springfield, my first out-of-state call, back when calls were really expensive, Clyde, was to Sunspot, New Mexico. It was that cool. It was that cutting edge. And the telescope is still an amazing, eighth wonder of the world. That big obelisk-looking spire they've seen sticking up above the pine trees in the photos. I think they saw something. Now, whether it's your guy Sam or something similar, I mean, for years, have you been watching any of the SOHO solar imagery from NASA for years? Yeah,
I watch it, but after that Sunspot was shut down, the linkage to SOHO was shut down. You couldn't link to SOHO.
They cut off the algorithm, claiming they're doing some kind of computer something or other, and it's going to take weeks.
Yeah.
What used to happen with the SOHO imagery is that all kinds of weird things appeared in the images beside the sun. And they were dismissed as, pixels and glitches and cosmic rays. No, these were real objects cavorting around like they were taking selfies. Like somebody out there wants to be noticed, and they're trying to get through the filters. So they go through the eyes that Earth has on the sun to try to say, Yahoo, here I am, like putting your fingers in your ears and waggling your hands, that kind of thing. So I think that the Sunspot guys saw something they weren't supposed to see.
Right.
And the FBI landed like a ton of bricks with Blackhawks and whatever to try to chase down all the routes the information would have used to leave the facility. Because anybody in the right mind wouldn't put it on the internet. They would put it on a thumbnail or thumb drive, put it in an envelope, and send it by slowpoke mail. Right?
Right. That'd be no one would suspect anything going out in the mail.
In these days, who would suspect the mail? The mail is, so retro, that kind of thing.
Right. Exactly.
So someone leaked somewhere, and the FBI, again, who can't take the time to look into Kavanaugh, they trace back to this little tiny enclave at 10,000 feet in the middle of nowhere, southern New Mexico. And they made a huge deal. I mean, I have a feeling that maybe it's even more interesting.
Right.
Suppose you're familiar with Richard Dunn and his whole breakaway civilization idea, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Suppose we've made inroads into getting, spies or agents or fellow travelers in the whole breakaway civilization crowd. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they use a mechanism to communicate their information from out there to folks down here.
Well, using what?
Using some terrestrial facility.
Right.
All right?
The only facility that I know would be either Sunspot
or the Soho spacecraft.
Right. And, of course, we can't forget that HARP has the power, right?
Well, HARP is electronic. I'm thinking imagery.
Oh, you're saying imagery. Oh, I thought you meant just communication in general.
No.
We'd have to have a powerful source to send that information out there. And the only thing I can think of is like 50 gigawatts of power.
Are you familiar with what happened on July, I think it was 24th of this year, 3 months ago?
What?
Over Siberia?
Yeah, the explosion. The black. The sun turning black.
The occultation, the artificial eclipse.
Right. Yes.
3.5 hours, bing, and suddenly it's gone.
Right.
Over an area the size of Italy.
Right. So how was it that the sun went black? Because they said they saw
it's
a
really
flash,
simple.
They saw a bolt, and then they saw the blackness.
It's really simple. You park a big, umbrella, parasol in front of the sun that only impacts a limited area. I mean, the moon is 2,160 miles in diameter. It's 250,000 miles away. When it moves across the sun, it occults the entire solar disk, right?
Right.
If you had something much closer, like almost in low Earth orbit, it wouldn't have to be 2,000 miles across. It could be a few thousand feet across.
And they would use it as a communication tool.
And, you use it to get somebody's attention.
Exactly. Okay.
You basically say to Putin, remember, this occurred right after Putin had agreed to come to Washington for the second Trump meeting.
It's interesting.
If we're dealing with real extraterrestrial brothers and sisters, another space-faring civilization out there, a la, Rick's breakaway civilization model, and we're at war at some level, there's weird stuff going on.
With the weather and with everything else, I mean, it's crazy.
Look at the Cold War. During the Cold War, you had two big superpowers, but they had spies on each side that tried to communicate with each other.
What I'm going to do, Richard, is I'm going to play you the Sam call and let you determine what Sam's saying. Because he's kind of talking about using a very powerful tool in order to communicate and to send images and information. And tonight's special guest, Richard C. Hoagland of the Enterprise mission. So happy to have him on the program tonight to discuss a number of things. Right now, we're discussing what the hell happened at Sunspot. Of course, we had our speculations and we had our theories, and a number of people sent me theories, and there's all still buzz around the internet that the narrative they're framing is not the right narrative, that maybe something else went on there. Richard even says that he feels that something else went on there. Richard, I want to actually play you something. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, there's a guy named Sam who, from time to time, when we do shows, he calls. And sometimes we don't take his calls because we just, we don't want him to take the call. But one night when the whole thing went down at Sunspot, I said, if there are any Paul Revere's out there, okay, if there are any Paul Revere's out there, I want you to call in and tell us what you think happened at Sunspot. And since Sam, and we've checked his background, we've had a number of people who we know that could check his background. He said for 30 years, he worked for DARPA, and he worked in the Scalar Weapons Division, and he gave us some information in the past that has been correct, okay, about something called the Medusa horn, which is a scalar weapon that they used on the diplomats in Cuba. He gave us that information before. There's even big information in the media. He gave us all that information. Well,
yeah, I have a few sources like that. One in particular we call deep space.
Right.
Like Deep Throat.
Exactly. Well, this guy just calls himself Sam. And so the other night when I was talking about Sunspot, we get this call coming in. I believe it was from Colombia or someplace, because the thing is that it was a rerouted call, and you can tell by the sound of it because there's an echo. It was
in Colombia, the country?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. So, and we happen to know somebody who was in Colombia as well that used to do, gun running for the CIA. What's his name? Gene Tatum, right? It was Gene Tatum.
So he's an expat, or he routes it by satellite through another country?
Yes, I believe he's routing it through, because when you hear the connection, you'll hear how it was routed through. You can hear there's an echo, and he was talking through a voice oscillator to make his voice sound different. Okay? So I'm going to play you the call. I want you to listen to what he has to say about what he believes happened at Sunspot. It's very compelling. And I just wanted you to hear it so you give us your opinion on this, because we had a guy by the name of Christopher Fontenot who was in the intelligence. He was in intelligence with the Navy. And when we mentioned two of the programs that Sam mentioned, he said, I don't comment on top secret or classified material. So listen to this. This is amazing. Here we go. Sam?
Sam? Yes.
Sam, this is
Sam.
Okay, Sam.
Sam.
I got an echo. Where are you calling? Are you somewhere? Where we're getting an echo?
I'm somewhere with a little echo, but it's the only private place for me to be right now.
Okay. We're going to deal with the echo because we want to hear what you have to say. So you're calling the program tonight to tell us what you think is going on at Sunspot?
I think I have the answer. There aren't many things in the world I have the answers to, but I believe this is one of them.
Okay, well, just to avoid the echo, I'm going to let you tell everybody what you think is going on at Sunspot.
My firm belief is that the Sunspot facility has been hacked, very probably by Chinese bad actors. The reason they want to hack it is because the NSO, that's the Solar Observatory in Sunspot, is a part of an intranet that also includes HARP, Hammer, and SMAC. Through this network, we've been very successful at manipulating the solar surface and the coronosphere, to the point whereby we can actually trigger coronal mass ejections of controlled size, duration, density, and intensity.
Now, how do they trigger them? Are they using the magnetic field, or what are they using?
They're using scalar waves. If you remember, I talked about scalar wave transmission before. These are transmitted through HARP. HARP is the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, which, although officially it was given to the university, it is still funded through a group known as the Office.
The Office.
The Office managed to pump enough money into that facility to expand it in size and capability over 40% in only 2 years following 2013, when it was handed over to the university.
I was reading somewhere that the telescope doesn't even work.
It's not the telescope that needs to work. It's the sensor array. They use the sensory array so that they can carefully monitor the effects and steer the direction of forces from SMAC, Hammer, and HARP.
SMAC, Hammer, and HARP. I've never heard of SMAC or Hammer.
Hammer is the High Altitude Meteorological Manipulation Energy Research Program. SMAC is the Solar Magnetic Amplification and Causative Configurator. These are critical elements in the weather solar control grid.
And so the coronal hole was created by this thing? What's going on?
It was created by a boo-boo, a little miscalculation. Understand, HARP is capable of transmitting signal strengths in excess of 50 gigawatts. They require so much energy, and that energy has to be of such a very high quality that it can only be provided by SMAC.
So you say
SMAC has its own nuclear reactors, and you have to control the quality of the electricity, the exact frequency, and extremely accurate micro values, all the while delivering unheard of wattage.
Okay, I just lost track of what I was going to say. I was going to ask you, you're saying that bad actors hacked the system. Why did they hack the system? And who was involved? And why did they hack the system? And what did they hack into?
By hacking into the computers at the NSO, they now have access to an intranet. The intranet connects the NSO, HARP, Hammer, and SMAC because they feed upon and require each other. You must have a network because there are so many thousands of gigabytes of information in constant flow to make this work. It's delicate, but take a look at this hurricane coming in off the East Coast. I promise you're in for a big surprise.
A big surprise in what regard?
They won't tell me. My friend is a little tight-lipped. He worked with me in a parallel project for about 15 of my 30 years with DARPA.
So why would the FBI be involved with this?
Well, if we have hacking into the computers by foreign actors, let's just say, for example, the Chinese, if they're getting into the system, that's the FBI's business.
So are you indirectly inferring that it's China? Or are you implying it's China?
When the last name is Wang or Liu, that's entirely possible.
Okay. Is there any truth to the rumor that White Sands may be involved in any way?
In no way that I am aware of. White Sands is in no way connected to the office and to their projects, but which, remember, their mission is to master control of the solar surface and the Earth meteorological configuration. They need to control the weather. They need to control the sun. And they're awfully close.
Wow. It's hard to believe, but you never steered us wrong before. I'll tell you, the last two times you called or you've been involved and we've interviewed you, you've been right on the money.
I'll be on the money here. I have an extremely reliable and not anonymous to me source that says, watch this already. You've watched in the last, since before I called you, the hurricane has dropped 2 levels of severity. But what it's going to do next is completely unexpected.
Okay, well, we'll be watching and we'll be paying attention. Sam?
Yes?
Thank you for calling the program tonight.
Well, thank you very much. Go forth and do what you do. I enjoy your show immensely.
Thank you, Sam.
Bye-bye.
Now, the surprise of the hurricane, I think, would be the fact that, as I said earlier, Florence is now, a remnant of Florence is now turning into another hurricane, which would be a hurricane giving birth to a hurricane, which is something that I think is very rare. But, Richard, you heard the phone call, and just for a few minutes we have left, what do you think is that about? The idea of harnessing power from the sun, using it for weather and other controls. And you were saying the umbrella being put in front of the sun during the darkness and the fake eclipse. I mean, do they have this power now?
Well, if you're dealing with a secret space program that originated at the end of World War II, a la, his breakaway civilization model, and you have our secret space program using the same technology, which goes back through the 1920s in T. Townsend Brown and electrogravitics, which is anti-gravity space drives, everything your caller said is plausible. Now, let me give you one real data point. When I took Robin and we went to Central America to measure before 2012 the physics of Chichen Itza, crossing the Gulf of Mexico, which is a 500-mile wide ocean, where really when you're on a ship in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, you're all alone. Right. Except for satellite communication and all that, you're really, really, really alone. In the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, with my Accutron inertial detection system, I was measuring torsion fields / scalar radiation from HAARP in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico.
Wow.
So I know they have this capability. The fact that they may be using it to try to tweak the surface of the sun, to me, is not that much beyond the edge of the paper. So everything this guy said is plausible. And here's the kicker. You'd need, like with any war, you have what are called forward spotters, the guys with the binoculars on the ground in hostile territory who basically look for the laser designator beams to where they're going to bomb and says you're on target, no, move to the left, that kind of thing. If Sunspot's telescope, this unique, very active, it's not retired at all, that's part of the cover story. It's this unique telescope which can see the best detail from the surface of the planet of any solar telescope in the world through what's called adaptive optics. If you're using Sunspot as a spotter to look at the sun and say, no, move the beam 3 degrees to the left, that kind of thing, right? It all fits together.
Oh, my God.
And my guy, my deep source, my deep space source, when I sent him an email a few days ago, I said, are you watching this Sunspot soap opera? And he sent me back an email, which I was really remarkably surprised that he would do.
What did he say?
He said, I'm going to say, direct quote, closer than I can talk about.
Oh, my God. Richard, we got to take a break. We're going to be back with more. Keep it here. It just got deeper, didn't it? Just got deeper. 888-673-3700. We'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You're listening.
Richard Hoagland is with us tonight on Ground Zero. You know, Richard, you got me thinking now about the secret space program. You got me thinking that maybe there are weapons far more advanced on this planet, and there are ways to create conduit, Einstein-Rosen bridges, and all kinds of things using powers on this planet.
Remember what Arthur Clarke said.
What did he say?
Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah, it's true. And
people try to characterize what stage is our civilization in. Sagan tried to do this. When Kardashev, who was a Soviet Union guy, very brilliant, genius scientist, worked with, I forget the other Russians, Shklovsky. When he coined his Type 2, Type 1, Type 3 civilization model, and he talked that a Type 1 would control the energy of its planet, a Type 2 would control the energy of its star system, and a Type 3 would control the energy of its galaxy. They never got into how that would happen. And it happens overnight. It isn't a slow, steady progress. You don't go, Type 1, Type 1.1, Type 1.2, that kind of thing. You go instantly because the breakthroughs are at the fundamental level of the torsion field or scalar wave physics. So the fact that we've got primitive baboons monkeying with technology which could destabilize the sun. I mean, our time is very short if we let these clowns do this in secret much longer.
Well, we know that, people like Anthony Patch and others have said that CERN actually has the power to tap into the flares from Saturn. And everybody is like, they believe it hook, line, and sinker because they've seen what they believe to be what would be stargates or whirlpools or other things in space. And then comes along Sam and they're saying, well, I have a hard time believing they can even take any of the power from the sun. And I say, well, CERN has their solar axiom antenna, which they call the Satan, and they do it all the time because they're looking for dark matter. So you're right. There's just something about something about a secret space program where they're using the power of the sun to actually, help in space travel, helping in other things, weather control and full spectrum control of the planet. You're right. How do you control a galaxy? You control its sun. And that's why we have stories of Dyson spheres. We have stories of other things going on in space that are remarkable. Richard, we're going to discuss these things and the discovery of planet Vulcan, which I think is a fascinating topic. And hints
that is so cool.
Yeah, hints at Planet X as well. Coming up with Richard Hoagland, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We'll be back. Richard C. Hoagland with us tonight on Ground Zero. Someone was telling me, and if anybody can give me the episode, maybe, Richard, you know the episode. Somebody was telling me that this whole cover story from Sunspot about the child porn on a computer was taken from an X-Files episode. And I don't know, I can't remember which X-Files episode it is, but they said there was a similar plot in the X-Files episode. And what's interesting is when they arrived at the Sunspot Observatory, they found a DVD set of the X-Files.
So you know about that?
Oh, yeah, I do. Somebody had left behind a DVD set of the X-Files, and somebody had just sent me a text saying, you know, Clyde, that whole pedophile, that whole child pornography computer thing was a cover to cover up something in the X-Files. It was a cover up for something similar that happened in the X-Files. So I'm wondering if they're making that up from an X-Files episode.
Well, the local resident who went up there with his son and was videoing.
Yeah.
He actually shot through the main lab window, which was locked, thank goodness, and sitting right in front of the window, which, by the way, the windows had been totally recently cleaned.
Yeah.
And they could see footprints where the janitor, remember this putative child porn janitor?
Yeah.
Had mopped the floor in the corridor in the lab, and through the big windows you could see his footprints on the floor where he walked through the water after he'd mopped it. So sitting right in front of the window is this trash can, and on top of the trash can is this X-Files DVD, which is an interactive DVD. I forget the actual title. My producer, Cynthia, found it, and it's up on the Other Side of Midnight website for last Saturday night.
Right.
But, I mean, it's like a message, and in 14 high Hollywood signed letters saying, nothing you see here is real. Think X-Files.
If anybody can get me that episode or show me the episode or at least lead us in that direction, I think we're exposing something right here with Richard C. Hoagland on the program. So all that's left now, we can understand.
Well, let me go and look at our site and look at the website. And
all right.
It's the othersideofmidnight.com.
Other Side of Midnight. And you're doing a show this Saturday again at midnight, right?
Saturday and Sunday.
Saturday and Sunday. So
Saturday, I'm delving into the weirdnesses in the Vatican.
Uh-huh.
And Sunday, I'm doing a whole show on the Elon Musk announcement of the tourist mission around the moon.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, the X-Files episode was unrestricted access.
Wow.
You scroll down, it's right there on the other side of midnight.com, last Saturday's episode.
Unrestricted access.
And it's sitting there right on the trash can behind the brilliantly clean new windows of the Sunspot abandoned lab.
Wow. Let's see. 1997 video game developed by Fox. Tie-in with the television series The X-Files. Unrestricted access is an interactive database program compiling information for the television series' first 4 seasons. Okay, I'll have to look into this because
it can't be more plain than that.
Right, taking it right from an X-Files video game. If they took,
the thing is that none of the 40 folks that live up there or work up there or whatever, the families and all that, nor the government, nor Aura, nor the National Science Foundation said anything. They stonewalled everybody, including the local sheriff. Then they leave a DVD to the compilation in video game form of the first 4 years of X-Files. Give me a break.
Well, I think we're onto something. Maybe later on, if I find out more about this unrestricted access and the possibility that this is
I'm going to do an update on this on my Sunday show.
This is a plot. This could be a plot taken from the X-Files, and we just got to dig deeper and find out if the FBI is using the X-Files as a cover. Well,
I'm hoping to get my source, Deep Space, to actually open up, and I've not talked to him quietly. Right. Maybe he doesn't want to come on
talk
and talk
to Deep Space about a hammer and smack, will you? So see if he says anything about it, because if he knows something about it, then we're on to something, Richard, and that it just started, and of course we've had, like I said, we have one intelligence guy giving us giving us what little information he could. Now you're aware of it. Deep Space can find out more about it. We can hear from you later. But what I want to talk about right now is a lot of people were pushing me saying, Clyde, you need to also consider that maybe they picked up on something in space, like, for example, Planet X or something. And what really got me was, here we are talking about CMEs, for the least active period of the sun's 11-year cycle. We're at the solar minimum, yet we're having coronal holes, and they're opening up, and we're getting stuff shot at us. And they're saying we're going to have more CMEs coming, which is bizarre.
Well, if you want to experiment with technology which is godlike, type 2 civilization level technology, torsion field technology, the best time to experiment would be at a sunspot minimum, because that means the background of the sun doing weird stuff is going to be at a minimum, and what you do, you can detect, you can see whether it's working.
And they're getting their evidence now that we have these solar storms moving through. And so people are saying, well, why don't you talk about all the things we're seeing coming out of the sun? And I said, well, those could be particles that are bigger than the Earth. And they're saying, no, they're UFOs. And of course, there was somebody who around the internet, there was this viral, GIF of what appeared to be a sphere passing in front of the sun, meaning that some sort of planet had passed in front, or maybe it was the Earth or something. I don't know. But everybody's saying, talk about Planet X. And then I thought, well, yeah, okay, I'll talk about Planet X, but I wanted to say that even though I went in, thinking about Planet X, we have NASA and other scientists saying, well, let's talk about Vulcan for a minute. And I'm thinking, Vulcan, this is amazing that, they're going to talk about Vulcan, because they've been talking about Planet 9. They've been talking about, I think it was last May, they said, They found an object. They call it 2015 BP 519. They say it orbits the sun on a bizarrely highly eccentric path. It was about 10 times the size of the mass of the Earth and 20 times farther than Neptune. They didn't call it Planet X, but they said, hey, the nomenclature always is fit, because back in the days of Percival Lowell, how he was looking for Planet X, and of course Pluto and Neptune and Uranus and all these planets were coincidentally Planet X. So here we are again, where Pluto is being considered to be a planet. If we did have another planet, that would be Planet 10, which would be the Roman numeral X. And I'm just thinking, if you're looking into scientific speculation, and we're looking at the missing planet theories, and you're looking at all the hypothetical planets, you can safely say that all of a sudden, with all this scariness going on in space with the sun and hammer and smack and secret tests going on and shutdowns of observatories, all of a sudden, coming out of nowhere is a story that they found planet Vulcan, which most people are familiar with because it's the home planet to Mr. Spock on Star Trek. And they're thinking, wait a minute, is this science fiction? No, it's very real, isn't it? Isn't it, Richard? It's real.
Well, the star that Roddenberry picked for Spock's home world, 40 Eridani A. Yeah. I think it's a trinary star with 3 stars in the system orbiting each other. And Roddenberry ostensibly just picked it because it was visible in the night sky. It's about 16 light years away. You can see it with the naked eye in, I think, the northern hemisphere. Well, it's in Eridanus, which is kind of just in the southern hemisphere sky. Anyway, they've been looking for exoplanets for decades now, and they recently announced they'd found a planet with this new facility, the Dharma facility, orbiting 40 Eridani A, and it's about twice the mass of the Earth, and it's very close to the star, so it's hot. But Vulcan in Star Trek was a hot desert world, so you'd have to say, okay, come on, this is Vulcan. But here's where it gets weird. Is it possible Roddenberry was part of the inner clique, and that his projection of Vulcan's home planet orbiting the star system was not based on fantasy or science fiction, but because he was tipped? He knew there was a body like that orbiting that star.
Bo Ma, the lead author of the new research and head astronomer of the University of Florida, said in a statement, "This star can be seen with the naked eye, unlike the host stars of most of the known planets discovered to date. Now anyone can see 40 Eridani A on a clear night and be proud to point out Spock's home. The star is located about 16 light years away from Earth. It's known as HD 26965. It's a bit orange because it's a little smaller and cooler than our sun, but it also has some clear similarities to Earth's star. It's about the same age and sports a fairly similar sunspot pattern. That's good news for people hoping for real-life Vulcan residents." Matt Mutterspaugh, an astronomer at Tennessee State University and co-author of the new research, said in a statement that HD 26965 may be an ideal host star for an advanced civilization. That's 15, 16 light years away. Isn't that closer than Alpha Centauri?
No, that's 4.2 light years away.
Okay, 4.2. All right. Well, that's still pretty close when you're thinking about it.
It's in the neighborhood. It's definitely, right. And if you got warp drive, it doesn't matter. It's they can come from there to here, and we can go from here to there. You know, there's so much, Clyde, that we're not let in on, that we haven't been allowed in on for decades. Like all the NASA stuff, all the rocket stuff, even Elon Musk stuff is so retro compared to what the real space capabilities are of the secret space program of Earth and the breakaways out there. So whatever occulted the sun for several hours over Siberia, I think was a message, a threat. Like, we have bigger guns than you do. Don't mess with us.
Yep.
Don't tug on Superman's cape.
Right.
And this whole sunspot thing following on that is civvies that weren't supposed to see evidence of these technologies, eavesdropping, seeing something, and the FBI lands like a ton of bricks to plug the leak. That's the way I'm putting this together.
Yeah, it certainly fits with what we've discovered, too, and I think that we're going to stick by this until we know otherwise. But, Richard, thank you for backing this. It's certainly interesting to hear your take on this. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Strange things in the sky. The observatory shut down. A narrative that's false. Weapons that may be able to harness power from the sun. I mean, come on. This is getting real. And now Vulcan's been discovered. What next? Planet X? Probably. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We'll be back. Richard C. Hoagland's with us tonight on Ground Zero, and a fascinating show it is. You know, you were talking about that event that happened over Siberia where the sun disappeared, went dark. You realize that happened on July 20th, and today it's September 20th. So we're kind of talking about a cycle here, I guess.
Yeah, and that was the 49th anniversary of the Apollo 16 landing on the moon.
I remember that because we were talking about that. Remember, you and me? We brought that up. And, yeah.
And remember, Putin and Trump met in Helsinki on the morning that we launched to the moon on July 16th?
That's true. That's so true. I mean.
And then right after the Helsinki summit, where he spent 2.5 hours talking to Putin all by himself, and nobody knows what they talked about yet.
No.
Nobody.
No.
He suddenly invites him to Washington. Putin agrees, and then this thing appears over Siberia, and Putin cancels.
So they demonstrated the weapon, right? They demonstrated this weapon is what they did.
No. It's not. But no. Think this, Bill.
Okay.
If you can build spaceships miles across, and we've got the F-35, who's going to win? You don't need a weapon. You just need to demonstrate you're God and you're not. If you can blot out the sun at will over an area the size of Italy for several hours in Siberia, Putin is no dummy. He knows he doesn't have a gun in that fight.
No.
It's like bringing, a knife to a gunfight. They don't need to do anything. Now, maybe they're involved in the weather manipulation. Maybe our guys are countering so that the deadly Hurricane Florence, which would have decimated the Carolinas, was reduced to a tropical storm, and you got a rain event, which is still catastrophic. But we've had 30-some people died as opposed to 3,000 who died in Puerto Rico under a Cat 5.
Right. This is some amazing stuff. I mean, and it all seems to check out, and that's the weird part.
To date, I've recorded the weather manipulation with the Accutron. I can see what they do is you use the microwaves from the HARP antenna to vibrate the Earth's ionosphere. It's plasma.
Right.
The plasma generates the torsion waves. Those are the ones that manipulate space-time and move weather systems. so that the HAARP antenna is only used to generate the EM that piggybacks on the torsion to create the real effects you're looking for.
Christopher Fortnite said the same thing.
And I
said the same thing you did. Said the same thing you did.
This in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh my God!
Without an antenna you're hundreds of miles from the nearest antenna.
Right.
So there's no interference, and I'm getting these astonishing torsion field changes in the Accutron that only could have come from HAARP or an equivalent HAARP facility. Remember, HAARP is kind of like Kleenex now. It's not the only place they do this.
Right.
And most of the ones they're doing it from, we don't know about. They went dark. That's why HAARP was given to the University of Alaska, because it's obsolete now.
Well, they say it is, but they have to have the companion pieces, just like they said Aura that runs the observatory. They too feign the idea that what they're doing is something top secret, when in reality they're out in the middle of nowhere, and they can do that. They can do it with nobody knowing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
you identified, by the way, we're going to do a whole update on Sunspot on Sunday during the show at 10 o'clock Mountain Time.
Right.
Go to theothersideofmidnight.com and just click on our schedule.
Right.
We're on Saturday, Sunday nights every week. Saturday night, we're doing weird Vatican stuff. And Sunday night, we're delving into Sunspot again. And then the Musk Japanese private mission around the moon with 7 tourists.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like 4 years.
It's amazing.
I want to be one of them.
You want to be? You want to be one of the tourists?
Are you kidding? You nuts? Of course I want to be one of them.
Oh, great. Yeah, you should be. You should be one of the tourists. But
is very good at technology.
Well, you got to be an advisor in some capacity, because I'm sure, some, billionaire, playboy like Musk doesn't understand physics or understand those types of things that go into space.
Actually, he does.
He does, really?
Does, yes.
So you think it's going to be a safe trip to the moon?
Of course.
Okay. It's going to be safe. No.
Look at how much he has developed in 10 years compared to NASA's 60.
Yeah, but still.
Did NASA ever invent returnable rockets?
I just get a bad feeling about this. And if you're going to go on that trip, I don't want you to be another Krista McAuliffe or something like that. I just get a bad feeling about the trip to the moon.
Hey, we all don't get out of here alive anyway. Why not give your life for something that means something?
Well, yeah, at least you're going to go up and you'll know that you at least gave it a shot. But I don't know.
Yeah, but I know what's on the moon. The moon is not what everybody thinks it is. The moon has stunning artificial ancient structures all over it.
Oh, well, that would explain why they're bringing artists and, from what I understand, architects.
It's more even interesting. He's bringing an architect.
Yeah.
Architect the moon, except to look and say, oh, my God, those are buildings.
Yeah. It's full of stars.
This could be the watershed event that kicks humanity really into the 23rd century.
That just came to me. It's full of stars, Richard. It's full of stars. Yep. Anyway, we're going to be back with more Ground Zero. I want to talk about this crossing planet, Vulcan, and hints at Planet X. I want to get your thoughts on Planet 9, Planet X, and what the future holds, because a lot of people are chomping at the bit about Planet X. And then we can get to the calls. We're here with Richard Hoagland, Richard C. Hoagland, enterprisemission.com. You got to go there. And a great show tonight. We'll be back with more. Don't go away. Zero, my special guest, Richard C. Hoagland, the Enterprise Mission. And we're so glad to have him on the program tonight. And a lot of great information that we're giving you tonight. It's simply amazing, just what's going on. And I wanted to kind of just run this by you, and then we'll get to calls. I was learning that, the whole Nibiru thing could be the Babylonian word Nibu-Uru, which basically means anything that crosses a major planetary body. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be, if you want to just get kind of technical here, what we saw over Russia was a Nibu-Uru. What we're seeing when planets cross each other, when we're seeing these perturbations, we have a Nibu-Uru going on. So, I mean, when you're looking at the crossing place, the place of transition, it's a Nibu-Uru, not necessarily just Planet X, but you look at the ancient texts, and all you hear is, well, Nibu-Uru was basically a threatening body that would actually come across a planet. At first it was Jupiter, then they said something about Saturn, and of course, now everybody's looking for the comet planet or the winged planet or Nibiru or Planet X. What are your thoughts on Planet X? Since we've had some guy in Chile said that he was trying to track it. We had in the 1980s a story saying that it was out there. Now we have these guys from Caltech saying that they're looking at Planet 9. What's your take on it?
Well, I'm going with Mike Brown at Hawaii at the observatory there. He and his colleagues, they're the ones that kind of politically demoted Pluto several years ago.
Yeah.
And they've been looking for these exterior to Pluto Kuiper Belt objects. Mm-hmm. And then they looked at this little asteroid way out there, and it's in this bizarre orbit. And the only way they can get it into that orbit is if it was kicked into that orbit gravitationally by a big planet, a super Earth, orbiting with this very bizarre, elliptical inclined orbit that they're calling Planet 9. And I think Planet 9 exists. I think dynamically they've shown enough data to show that it's real. Now, Alan Stern, who's the head of the New Horizons mission and wants Pluto reinstated as a planet, he doesn't think that their Planet 9 is real. He thinks it's insulting to the memory of Clyde Tombaugh, who I knew, by the way. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate to meet him at JPL and have many-hour conversation once with Clyde, and I had his son on my show on the other side of midnight when we covered the whole Pluto encounter back in 2015. But I think there is a Planet 9 out there, whatever you want to call it, X or 9, and I think it's dynamically trying to tell us something about how this solar system is not a virgin. It's not pristine. It's been modified by, the folks with the Type 2 super technologies a long, long time ago, hundreds of millions of years ago, to basically be a crucible, a laboratory, a nursery for us, for consciousness,
right?
For Homo sapiens eventually. And we've got all kinds of hallmarks all around the solar system showing that this system is not normal. Like if you compare the standard solar systems that they've discovered now and our solar system is unique. It's one of a kind. When in nature do we ever get to inhabit a one of a kind place? The whole Copernican thing was, we're the center of the universe. No, you're one of X number of planets orbiting a star. So we've been dethroned up until now. And the guys that look at this stuff, they've been saying for a couple of decades, no, wait a minute, this solar system is unique. Is it possible it's unique because what I'm calling the cosmic engineers moved in and remade it so that we could flourish and evolve and sit here and look out and wonder and have radio shows like Clyde's?
Well, and a lot of things we learn from all this as well, and we find out more and more as we dig deeper, and it's always surprising that, a lot of things that we have talked about years ago are now coming to fruition. That at first what was speculation is now becoming fact. What was once fiction is fact. Conspiracy theory no longer is theory. And of course, there's something beyond conspiracy theory, which is just rational analysis, which, of course, for the longest time,
I hate that term conspiracy theory. That is so CIA debunking. It was coined in the 1970s to keep people from asking the right questions, off the edge of the envelope questions.
Right.
Aren't conspiracy theories. There are conspiracies.
Yes,
that's why we have an FBI and a CIA and a DIA and all the other.
Well, our founding
agencies.
Fathers were conspirators, right? They conspired against the king. They were criminals. They were conspirators.
Under the nose of the crown, they conspired to put together a government that would be of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Right.
That's a hell of a conspiracy.
Sure is. And then people say there are no conspiracies.
Well,
there are. It's just a matter. They got to use the nomenclature correctly. Got to use the way they got to use.
What is Sunspot Peak but a conspiracy? Except they're not letting us in on the conspiracy.
Yeah, they're not letting us in on what they planned, but we got an idea because we got people like Sam and you and Christopher Fortno, who basically got now
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've been working with the local ABC affiliate, Channel 7, KOAT, to try to get to the bottom of the Sunspot mystery.
Yeah.
The FBI office, which I've called in previous years, back on 9/11, I had some information I shared. They were eager to hear it. Mm-hmm. They will not talk. They won't say anything. They are mum. Why would you be mum about another pedophile case? Give me a break.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. The narrative's definitely not.
They need to hire better writers.
What's that?
Hey, guy, I'm available if you want me to come up with a really good cover story.
No, they stole it from the X-Files. We have to find that out. If they stole it from the X-Files, we got them nailed. If somebody can find an X-Files episode where they used a computer and that sort of and kitty porn.
I don't remember the name of the episode, but I remember the episode, yes. Mulder was investigating because the pedophilia was a cover for a much deeper, darker, if you can imagine, secret.
That's right. That's exactly right. Let's go to Nathan in Vancouver, British Columbia. You're on with Richard Hoagland. Go ahead. Richard C. Hoagland, go ahead.
Thanks for taking my call. What great guests you have. I only know about this Sunspot, New Mexico story because of this broadcast. I didn't even hear about it on that Austin, Texas broadcast. This story about the janitor, this is just like San Bernardino and the Paddock Vegas shooting and recently in Taos, New Mexico, the desert training compound, and even the YouTube shooter gal. The authorities, FBI, DOJ, State Department, I believe, purposely withhold information, give Swiss cheese reports, lots of holes, destroy crime scenes, and withhold ballistic reports.
Yeah.
Oh, and now it's
I'm going to steal that. The Swiss cheese report.
The Swiss cheese report. That's a brilliant.
Holes. Yeah.
Yeah. There's holes in the. Yes, exactly. Swiss cheese report.
That might even go to Owen Schroyer. Okay, give that to Owen Schroyer.
Okay.
Why they do that to get and destroy crime scenes is to let the random theories fly, and they just pick up the pieces, marshal, direct, deflect, and as need be to establish their fake news narrative that goes out.
Well, they pick out the craziest ones. See, that's the thing, is that you can have some really plausible theories. I mean, the old plausible theory, they were using the array to kind of spy on White Sands, I thought was an interesting take that maybe the
Chinese agent guy.
Exactly. Secret Chinese agent. I thought it was a very good conspiracy theory. Certainly. UFOs, always a great conspiracy theory if you can prove that they were tracking a UFO or tracking something like that. And everybody is talking about those, and probably some even crazier conspiracy theories out there, including a guy downloading child porn. But the thing is that when we have something, we create and we listen and we try to dig and we find something so unique, they'll immediately dismiss it and say, well, where did that come from? The best way to find out what is the truth is the theory that's ignored or the statement that's ignored. And I think we've got three people on this program, Sam, Chris Fontenot, and now Richard Hoagland, all talking about the very same topic. And I bet you they're going to ignore that theory. Everybody's ignoring that theory, or they're ignoring that fact that it's happening.
Clyde, if the events over Siberia had not happened,
right,
I would have probably gone with the Chinese theory. But the fact that something big came between us and the sun and just sat there and said, ha, you can't do this, and Putin caved, that tells me, like the whole Putin-Trump thing, Trump thing.
Leave it to you to go back to the Siberian story. That was a terrifying story, Richard. Just the idea that someone can darken the sun for 3 hours, or that we can darken the sun for 3 hours.
You put something big in front of it. You put a big parasol,
Right.
It's a big... Remember, once you control inertia and gravity, which I've been measuring with this Accutron technology for decades now, you control the universe. Because the only limit in size of your spacecraft is the ability to control the gravity that drives the spacecraft. And that technology we know because of T. Townsend Brown, and he was an admiral in the U.S. Navy. And we know there were secret experiments. And a friend of mine, Paul, what's his name, LaViolette, he's written a whole book called Anti-Gravity Spacecraft, documenting all the experiments, the secret government experiments, developing anti-gravitational technology. Once you crack that, NASA and rockets and shuttles and even Musk and his rockets are totally obsolete. You have the universe by the tail, and you can build spacecraft the size of moons if you want.
Well, we go all the way back to the Gary McKinnon case, where he was actually hacking into NASA and discovered all kinds of anti-gravity ships off-planet rosters of military
staffing and military officers and ship designations.
And they were going to extradite him to the United States as a terrorist. And I really don't think that Eric Holder and Hillary Clinton would have been able to hold that case in court.
It went all the way up to the office of the Prime Minister in Britain and the office of the President in the United States before they decided, wait a minute, this will make the guy too big and too prominent. Let's just deep six it.
No one expects a secret space program. No one expects a secret space program. Thank you, Richard. We'll be right back. Richard C. Hoagland with us. More coming up. Your phone calls right here on Ground Zero. Don't go away.
FM News 101 KXL.
On the phone with me is Ronnie. Remember getthetea.com? Well, guess what? I got the tea. It made me feel better. I'm still feeling the effects from it because it certainly has remarkable qualities and it helps you out feeling better. You know, Ronnie, I've gotten a lot of emails from people saying, I got the tea. It's working for me. Do you get a lot of email response about the tea?
I get a ton of emails. In fact, I got somebody the other day that had a problem with their stomach. They've got on my tea for a couple months, and they're feeling way better, and they said, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I get a lot of them, and that's exciting, you know, to be ahead of a company that you can sleep at night.
What kind of benefits do you get from the tea? I know one of the great benefits is feeling lighter, feeling more energetic because you're detoxing your body, are you not?
Absolutely, but here's a real kicker. In the world of GMOs, which is basically genetically modified organisms, these get into your system, and it's hard to get them out. So the tea helps with that because these GMOs actually change your DNA and your RNA. So it's really good to get cleansed.
So it's important to detox your body because it does help your DNA and your RNA.
Absolutely, absolutely, because we're being attacked by intruders, and we have to just realize that at all times. So is this something we do once in a while? I mean, you just get the tea and that's it, or do you do it all the time? I do it every day, 365. You can do it, you know, but it's kind of like a car. You know, if you wash your car every day, you're going to be looking good. But if you wash your car once every 6 months, it's going to suck. How long has your company been around, Ronnie? 11 years. We're almost 12 years old. So we're not some kind of fad that's going to come and go. We've been here a long time, and we're going to stay. They always call it the tea that makes you go, and it makes you feel better, too. Ronnie, we just go to getthetea.com to get the tea. Am I correct? Getthetea.com, and we've got even specials on the front page. Just scroll down, and you'll see them. They change every month, and that way you can save some money and get healthy. Getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Thanks, Ronnie. Thank you.
This is Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis on FM News 101.
All right, Richard, we found out about who was accused of kitty porn in the X-Files. You ready?
Okay.
Alvin Kurzweil.
What?
Yeah. It says here, Kurzweil worried that the presence of the police meant that someone knew he was providing information to Mulder and implied that the untruthful efforts to discredit him, including a previous accusation that he was guilty of downloading kitty porn, were common because he was considered by the syndicate to be a dangerous man due to their evaluation that he knew too much about the truth. Mulder asked if what the truth was. Kurzweil was referring to his books, calling them end-of-the-world apocalyptic garbage.
Interesting.
So, yeah,
so this
the Martin Landau character.
So this cover story builds on the whole X-Files mythos.
Yeah, the idea that Kurzweil was trying to get the word out about the secret government, about FEMA, and the disaster that was supposed to happen. Remember, he said there's going to be a disaster, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency will be the new government. And he says it will happen maybe on the 4th of July. That's taken right out of Behold a Pale Horse, by the way. And then, of course, Mulder was saying, well, how are they discrediting you? And he said they use things like kitty porn. They say I've downloaded kitty porn and other things to make me look like I'm writing apocalyptic garbage. So there you go. Alvin Kurzweil, Martin Landau character in the X-Files.
Yeah, no, vivid. One of Martin's best roles.
Yeah, he was really good in that. Let's go to Tim in Oregon. Hi, Tim. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde. Hey, Richard. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
Well, this is some of the topics that kind of keep people up at night, you know. When you were on Art Bell's shows, that's kind of what got started with for me, listening to everything you guys have to say. And from this, I'm actually writing screenplays for a trilogy of movies based on technology that's been in our Earth's past, and now people in the secret government are one individual is trying to leak some of that information out to expose what's going on. So, Richard, I've actually written you into one of the scripts that for these movies.
Really?
Yes, and I'm trying to make these 3 movies as accurate.
Just don't kill me off in the first act. I have to go to the moon.
And you know what? Sam Elliott has to play Richard Hoagland. I would have Sam Elliott play Richard.
That's not bad.
You think?
Yeah.
You have Richard.
Richard's got the right mustache. Okay.
He has to play himself.
What? Richard has to play himself? He's a bad actor.
Yeah. Well,
he's a bad actor.
Just got to present the truth. And one of the
just don't kill me off in the first act.
No, please. Go ahead. I'm sorry. We're having fun. Tim, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say one of the movies that I had, which the second one, was a dream. I watched the movie in my dream beginning to end, and that's how I wrote the script for it. It was just like, okay, I'm meant to do this particular trilogy, and now that this new information tonight is filling in some of the gaps that I needed to complete it. So...
you got it all right here with Richard. So if you want him in the movie, you better get that rider ready because he likes the green M&Ms in the bowl. He only wants back rubs on the weekends. That kind of thing. He's a rock star, so he's got to have that kind of treatment. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Tim. All right, man. Thanks for calling the show.
Thank you.
All right. Tell us about your show again, Richard. When is it going to air and your topics? And we're going to love it.
Okay. It's theothersideofmidnight.com on the internet. Just go there. We're worldwide. Sunday night and Saturday night at 10 p.m. Pacific Mountain, which is 9 p.m. Pacific. I'll stay in Mountain time, Pacific time. 9 p.m. Pacific, okay? Both nights. 3 hours. And on Saturday night, I'm doing the Vatican. There's weird stuff. The Vatican believes in ETs?
Oh, yeah. They believed in them for many centuries.
And we're going to talk about that and how it kind of grades into this weird, again, the running theme, child pornography.
Enterprise mission.
What happened in Pennsylvania.
No kidding.
And the fact that Francis won't say a damn word.
No.
Nothing. Zero. I grew up as a Catholic, so I'm really into doing some investigating here, and I've got one hell of a guy.
We're out of time.
Leo Zagme.
We're out of time. Richard Hoagland, EnterpriseMission.com. We'll see you soon.
Ground Zero. So this is where the first guy got AIDS.
Peter, this is the site of the 9/11 terrorist attacks.
Oh, so Saddam Hussein did this?
No.
The Iraqi army?
No.
Some guys from Iraq?
No.
That one lady who visited Iraq that one time?
No, Peter, Iraq had nothing to do with this. It was a bunch of Saudi Arabians, Lebanese, and Egyptians financed by a Saudi Arabian guy living in Afghanistan and sheltered by Pakistanis.
The number is to call tonight, 888-673-3700. 888-673-3700. It's nice to have someone like Richard Hoagland on to connect the dots of stories that happened prior to the Sunspot incident, and of course bringing up the darkening of the skies for 3 hours. It was on July 20th. We're 2 months after that, and now we're talking about problems with the sun again. Of course, Richard brought up the idea that this could be all part of a secret space program. He confirmed what Sam had said. He knows of the weapons. He knows that they're available. Of course, again, we don't go into detail about Hammer and Smack because it's a classified operation. But we've talked about other secret space or other space weapon type platforms in the past. And, of course, all leftovers from SDI, the Star Wars program during the Ronald Reagan era. We talked with Alana Freeland about this. We've talked about several others, about Space Fence. And, of course, Donald Trump wants Space Force. But a secret space program is something that a lot of people either say that they don't believe in or they do believe in, but they don't know if it's advanced as we say it is. But we brought up in the last hour Gary McKinnon. Now, Gary McKinnon was arrested in March of 2002 for allegedly hacking into dozens of NASA and Pentagon computers. Now, he's admitted the security breaches. He admitted to the security breaches, but said that they were unintentional and that he was looking for evidence of UFOs. Now, according to Gary McKinnon, he claimed to have found photographs, film, and other evidences of alien spacecraft secretly held by various U.S. government agencies. Now, McKinnon first hacked into the NASA Johnson Space Center. He found a high-definition picture of a large cigar-shaped UFO over the northern hemisphere. McKinnon later hacked into classified files of the U.S. Space Command, incorporated into Strategic Command back in October of 2002. And what he found was a list of officers' names under the heading non-terrestrial officers, and McKinnon stated that what he found was a list of fleet-to-fleet transfers and a list of ship names. He said that after looking them up, he realized that they weren't U.S. Navy ships, and what he saw made him believe that NASA was keeping a secret about an off-planet space fleet. Now, he also said that the records revealed that the off-planet shuttles could hold 300 people. After all of this, there was talk about a program that many Americans were unaware of, and it was called the Solar Warden Program. We talked about the Solar Warden Program with Olaf Phillips, but Solar Warden, it speculated that Solar Warden had been around since the 1980s, and while the Freedom of Information Act gives little detail on the secret space program, it does say that most of the program's records have been redacted and that it was an operation that was based out of Johnson Space Center. The program not only operates classified under the U.S. government, but also under the United Nations Authority. And, of course, the United Nations has its talons in global warming and climate change operations with their green movement, and that would make me wonder about the militaristic nature and the front that they have for geoengineering, sustainability, and how the elite can survive on an extinction-level threat operation. Solar Warden is said to be made up from the U.S. Aerospace Black Projects contractors, but with some contributions of parts and systems by Canada, United Kingdom, Italy, Austria, Russia, and Australia. It is also said that the program is tested and operated from secret military bases located in the west deserts of Utah, Area 51, and other locales. Many people around the world are now witnessing craft moving around in the skies at subspace speeds, and they completely defy gravity, as Richard Hoagland talked about in the last hour with regards to some of these weapons that can block the sun. Some of them are craft. And, of course, a lot of this could be tied to Sunspot, which we talked about as well. So this has been actually a show that is, once again, taken on its own identity. And so the only thing I can do now is try to, get some more information together and present for you some follow-up on Richard Hoagland had to say, and I'm going to take some phone calls too. So I'll do that, and maybe we can get some information going from you guys as well. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Go to Martha in Ohio. Hi, Martha. You're on Ground Zero.
Yes, Clyde. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I didn't hear all your shows, so I don't know if you covered this or not. But when you were talking about Sunspot being closed because of child porn stuff, the night that you brought that up, you talked about somebody called in and said there were a lot of other observatories in the country. And
there are 11. There are 11 that were down. The 11 websites were down, and some of them claimed that a lot of them claimed that the operations were because of web updates and other things. But there are a lot of people trying to debunk the idea that other observatories were shut down, basically naming only what they said was working on projects that may or may not have had any sinister or nefarious purpose.
So you're saying that they were shut down because of web problems? So
that's the claim.
Sam that called in about the hacking, Chinese hacking, that would that encompass all of those things?
Well, I mean, take it for what it's worth. I mean, look, when you got someone who calls up and, you know their background and they give you vague ambiguities, you have to go out and you have to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to try and figure out what he means by all this. And so I've talked with now two people. We've talked with Chris Fontenot. We talked with Richard Hoagland. And it just seems that everything that we're hearing is checking out. That our report is holding water, and everybody else can make up their own damn theories if they want to, and everybody else can explore their theories. But it just seems to me that when we present what we have, it all seems to work together. And even when you try to explore other theories, it just seems to me that this one seems to carry over. I mean, once again, I wanted to bring up Planet X tonight, Nibiru, and Richard was certainly wanting to talk about it, but he wanted to talk more about what we were discovering about Sunspot. So it just seems to me that a chord's been struck, and people are beginning to understand it, especially those who would know something about the weapons, the secret space programs, and that are now coming forward and saying, well, this is what it is. They won't go into detail because it's classified, but they're saying, yes, we do have the powers that you're talking about. Yeah.
Wow. Your shows are so interesting. Thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you, Martha. I appreciate you calling. Yeah, I mean, okay, let me just tell you this. You know, many of you know that when I write shows, I write the notes and I put them in there, and those are the notes I usually stick by for the show. They're kind of an itinerary for the show, and I put those together, and I say to myself, okay, so, and the reason why we do this is because we make the sound effects stuff, everything based on the topic of the program, all right? And every once in a while, we're going to have to dig back in the morgue and find something that would certainly fit what we're talking about. And, of course, everything that we did tonight was themed primarily on Sunspot, Planet X, and Vulcan, okay? Because that's what we're talking about. I mean, they did discover Vulcan. They are talking about new planets. And this is another thing. How do they have the power to discover these new planets? Well, they have very powerful tools to do this. And you know, and also I wanted to explore the theory that maybe Planet X is out there somewhere. Well, we can still discuss that. But if you see now, a bomb has been dropped on the show again, and this is where we have to pick up and kind of run with the ball. And this is where we rely on you to give us input and dialogue as well. So tonight, again, blown away by what Richard Hoagland had to say, bringing up the Siberian darkness of the sun, saying, well, of course, you know, they have the power to darken the sun for 3 hours. You don't think they have the power to do this? They have the power to do this. And it just dawned on me, yeah, you're right. This is something that needs to be talked about. Let's go to Johnny right now in Massachusetts. Hi, Johnny. You're on Ground Zero.
Hi, Clyde.
Hi.
I just had a question. Don't you find it bizarre that everything with Sunspot also coincided with what happened in Boston, Massachusetts with the explosions?
Mm-hmm.
And what I also found, and give me some time, is the fact that it wasn't reported on the world news. It wasn't reported mainstream, and I'm looking for answers like you are. But I know one thing: the facts are we know that the FBI was there. We know that there were Blackhawks there. We know, and the question is why. We know the facts. There's been so many theories that have been running around, and I'm asking you, what do you believe? Because earlier this week,
I believe my report.
Something big was going to happen. Something big is going to happen soon.
Yeah, I believe my report.
Right.
I believe my report. I mean, look, if we talked about the final blow on Alex Jones's show, and after I started talking about the final blow, we have a few days where it was almost like the apocalypse was happening.
Exactly.
Then what happens is then it started with the arrow plague. Now it's mosquitoes. There was another report of encephalitis somewhere else. I was just reading about that the other day. Now we have planes coming in with people with bleeding noses and bleeding ears. That happened with Mumbai.
Right.
This is out of hand. This is crazy. So there are a number of things happening simultaneously, and one is going to take. And when it does, that'll be the final blow. And then they were supposed to have that EAS test today on your phone. They moved it to October 3rd.
Yeah.
Now, if something else goes wrong, then they're going to have to move it again. But they're saying we're moving this test because we don't want to confuse people about Florence. So They moved the test. Well, what if we have, like what's going on in the Atlantic now, we have a repeat performance of Florence since pieces of Florence are turning into a hurricane again?
Exactly. I'm a Navy veteran, Clyde, and the funny thing is, we've both seen stranger things. And I serving the military is less than 1% of the population. So yes, we do see stranger things. But one thing I learned about, especially this week, listening to you, is that you hit the nail on the head where, as you said, something big is going to happen.
Right.
In Sunspot, New Mexico is a perfect example of stranger things, and how now it's culminating into, like you said, SMAC, Planet X, everything that's going on. It's all coming together as one.
Right. It's coming together, and it's coming together nicely. Thank you very much. And it's something that, for me, as a person who's every day coming in and thinking what more can happen, what more can show or light the pathway. It's just becoming easier. It's becoming easier. Like, we had a slow news day yesterday. Most of the information came in about Sunspot, but it was just all, of course, the narrative seemed to be just a little false, a little fake. Now we find out that this whole narrative was taken right out of the X-Files Fight the Future movie, which, by the way, I must tell you that the X-Files Fight the Future movie with Kurt Weill warning everybody about what's coming, what did they do? The syndicate was trying to push a pathogen on the people of the United States, and they were carrying it to people through bees. Not mosquitoes, but bees. I mean, if this is like a page taken right out of the X-Files, I don't know what is. This is pretty bizarre what they're doing.
Right.
It's just like an X-Files episode. It's just creepy. It
Absolutely.
really is. And this is reality. I mean, life imitating art. It's really bizarre. And it's not the first time, remember, because the lone gunman, 3 or 4 months before the 9/11 attacks, their plot, Chris Carter, their plot in that was basically the planes going into the World Trade Center.
Don't you find it weird that all those planes flew out of Boston, Massachusetts?
Yeah.
To 9/11, and you talked about this a lot this week about 9/11 since September 11th, and we get back to here comes reality, and it reminds us, like you had said in your broadcast, it reminds us, every American on 9/11, what had happened and why.
Right.
The question is why.
So pay attention.
And who funded it and why.
So
and
pay attention now. Yeah, pay attention now. Pay attention now as you're seeing the patterns. Pay attention now. They may lead to nothing, or there may be the very things that you can look back on and say, so that, like when Richard Hoagland and I talked about the blackening of the sun in Siberia for 3 hours.
Right.
I forgot all about that. When he brought that up, I'm going, oh, hell, they had the power to darken the sun. Now they have the power to capture the waves of the sun for a weather war.
Sunspot.
Yeah, Sunspot. New Mexico.
Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. I mean, yeah, the title speaks volumes. Sunspot. I mean, can we figure this out, or is it just not open or clear enough for you? I mean, it's becoming apparent for those who can see through this manipulation we have with the media. This is something very real, and we're seeing it transpire. And I'm right here with you. So I would love to talk with you more about this. This is amazing. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Wow, what a show this is. It's another one for the books, ladies and gentlemen. Richard Hoagland dropped the bomb on us tonight. And we'll be back with more. Don't go away.
FM News 101.
Hey, I want to remind everybody that coming up for the Ground Zero Lounge, that'll be happening at the Paradise Sports Bar, which amazingly happens once a month. And we'd love for you to be there. In fact, it's happening on the 29th. So it'd be great to bring everybody together for that event. The 29th is when it's happening. And, yeah, it's a lot of fun. We go there. We do all kinds of talk and dialogue. And it's like having a town hall meeting. But you can go to 124-23 Northeast Gleason. That's 124-23 Northeast Gleason. That's in Portland. It's midtown, middle of town, 124-23 Northeast Gleason. It'll be next week. That's September 29th, Saturday. Kicks off 7 p.m., goes till 10 p.m. It'll be hosted by me. Also, you'll be able to meet Ron Patton. We're going to have our new books available. If you want to come by and pick those up, we just got them fresh out of the press. So we'd really love to see you out there. There's no cover to get in. And you have to be 21 or older to participate because, of course, it is a bar. So you come on out to the Ground Zero Lounge. We'll be waiting for you. It's, once again, Saturday. That's next week. Saturday, September the 29th at 7 p.m., the Paradise Bar. Get a pencil so you have this written in. If you've been there before, you know exactly where it is. You also go to the Ground Zero events page to get a map if you're a little lost. You're coming from anywhere outside of the Portland metro area. Once again, here's the address. Get the pencil. Got it ready? Okay. 124-23 Northeast Gleason, Portland, Oregon. 124-23 Northeast Gleason. And, of course, karaoke afterwards. We have a lot of fun singing. If you want to hear me belt out Love Gun, I'll belt out Love Gun, because I do that sometimes. If I feel really up to it, I do some Johnny Cash and some other good stuff. So, I don't know. It's a whole lot of fun. Once again, Ground Zero Lounge, Saturday, September 29th, 7 to 10 p.m. at the Paradise Bar, 12423 Northeast Gleason. That's 12423 Northeast Gleason. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Getting your phone calls coming up. Don't go away. Clyde Lewis, you're listening to Ground Zero. The universe is still a matter of unfinished business, especially when you're dealing with secret space programs, Space Force, Sunspot, relays, HARP, SMAC, Hammer, all being talked about on this program. And it's certainly, I think, we've had now at least 3 people talk about this topic and have its connections to Sunspot. We have revealed on this program that an episode of The X-Files, a video game of The X-Files, was found in the trash can at the facility, and that the plot that the FBI is feeding us about Sunspot is directly out of The X-Files, where Dr. Kurzweil was accused of downloading kiddie porn to kind of ruin his reputation. It's amazing how, they think we're that stupid, that we're that dumb, that we're not figuring this out on our own. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Go to Tim in Oregon. Hi, Tim. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde. This is Tim.
Hey.
I just wanted to call in to talk about a little bit of clarification on some of the things Sam and yourself went over. When people mention hacking, a lot of the times they assume that somebody's on a computer 1,000 miles away, etc., trying to hack into a system. And when people heard that on the radio, they probably assumed that that's what's happened in this case. But
I don't know if they assumed it at all. I mean, you think they assumed it, so go ahead and explain what you're going to explain.
Okay, well, what I was going to explain here is it's on a classified network we commonly refer to as a SymperNet. So there is no outside access to it. It would have to be someone on the inside, or if there was a visitor there, etc., trying to place a back door, basically put a thumb drive, etc., in one of the on-network computers to try and download sensitive information. But what they probably didn't count on is after Snowden and these other recent leaks we've had on government systems, they introduced a new software that anytime you introduce a thumb drive or any kind of outside hard drive, etc., to a government computer, it automatically alerts IT officials and law enforcement of you doing so, and they immediately come to your position, your location, which is likely what happened at Sunspots. Like Sam said, somebody attempted to hack the system, placed a thumb drive, placed something in the system there. It was an outside source. It automatically alerted the FBI. They did their thing.
So you sound like you know what you're talking about. Do you have a background?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So let me ask you a few questions, and you can tell me if you can't tell me or not. So what you're saying is plausible. What you're saying is that somebody that was inside got into the facility and hacked into the net. They found it. They blocked it. It alerted the FBI. The FBI showed up. Whoever it was tried to make an escape. They cleared the area. Why would they shut down the post office?
Because they probably assumed that this person was attempting to get rid of this information or whatever he might have gotten via sitting in the post office and then try to escape on foot. Maybe this person was the body that was found in that area. I don't know. I'm just speculating. I don't have any inside information on this particular case.
Interesting thought. And about the other secret weaponry that they may have uncovered. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't have any information on exactly what he was saying. I do have. I knew somebody who worked on the HARP project, but I didn't know about this new Hammer and SMAC program or anything. I don't have any information on that.
Right. Most people don't because it's classified. So whatever he dumped on us without us knowing about it. And it's like what Christopher Fontenot said. He said, I'm not going to talk about classified information. I think that Hoagland kind of leaked a little bit, some of it, but, just pointing out some things that have happened prior to the Sunspot controversy. So especially the Siberian 3-hour sun blockage, whatever that was. So, something definitely is up, and they are using certain types of, I guess you could call them weapons or at least tools to harness the power from the sun.
Yeah, that sounds like a plausible thing that could happen.
Yeah. Well, Tim, I thank you for the information. That brings some clarity to at least how the hacking would have happened. And I think you should be commended for what you've just given me. I appreciate it very much.
Okay. All right, you're welcome.
You take care. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Let's go to Tim in Texas. Hi, Tim. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde. How are you doing today, sir? Good to hear you again or talk to you.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Hey, I just wanted to make a comment on the advanced technology stuff. I used to have a place out on the backside of San Marcos towards Wimberley, and I'd sit out there and kind of gaze at the stars at night. But anyways, one night, I see this giant floodlight, and we're talking, you know how floodlight is, you've got your point of start, and then it kind of pans out and gets bigger like a cone. Well, imagine that being as big as a professional baseball stadium, about the altitude that the commercial jets fly. And it was on for, several seconds and just hanging there. So what I believe I saw, whatever made that, gravity had nothing on it. I mean, it beat gravity. It was just hanging there. It was floating, just sitting in the sky,
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that, and then a couple minutes later, a little bit further in the distance, it does the same thing. And so I believe, whatever it was, probably one of ours, because we got so many military bases and there was nothing scrambled to go meet them.
Right.
Well,
we saw a lot of crazy.
It was hovering. It was definitely barely moving.
I've seen a lot of crazy stuff out of the West Deserts of Utah. You got the Tooele Army Depot, you got the Dugway. You're out there in the middle of nowhere. And, in fact, we went to do an investigation there, and we were escorted. They wanted us off the property, but not only did they want us off the property, they escorted us out of Tooele County into Salt Lake County. They drove us out to the Great Salt Lake, and then they said, okay, you're on your own. So we went back to Salt Lake County, and we held out there. But, man, it was scary. When we were just, 200 feet away from the gate, and they came and told us that they were going to arrest us if we didn't leave, and that they would escort us by gunpoint. They escorted us at gunpoint out of the area. It was just really a terrifying experience.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So they got a lot of secrets they're holding from us. A lot of these secrets, I think, have to do with experimental craft or secret aircraft that they're certainly using that use anti-gravity. And, of course, the experiments they're doing with the sun, which, of course, may be attributed to the old Solar Warden days where they had guys working on a secret space program using the sun. It's just amazing what we're finding out tonight. I really appreciate it. Tim, thank you so much for the call.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it.
888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Tonight's show, again, blowing my mind. I hope you're listening and you're trying to figure out what's going on. I still, you go into shows prepared. That's what I do every day. I come in early every day, and I try to prepare my shows, and I prepare them in a way that I can go from point to point. But then again, lately I've been having bombs dropped on me, and I don't know where to go with them. So I certainly go with what I know, but I certainly would like to know what you know and how you feel and what you're sensing about what's really going on behind the scenes. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. More of your phone calls coming up on Ground Zero. Don't go away. In Oregon, hi, Bjorg. You're on Ground Zero.
Hi.
Hi.
So excited to talk to you. I love you and respect what you do.
Thank you.
I've been listening for about 4 years now. And I was wondering if you're familiar with Nassim Haramein and his work.
Was he the guy that was showing the plasma effects on the sun?
Probably. I don't know about that, though.
Okay. But well, I thought he was the guy who did the plasma experiments. He was taking pictures of the sun, and he picked up on some really strange things in front of the sun that were kind of like, I don't know, they look like plasma balls taking energy from the sun and then taking off like huge spaceships.
Yeah. Actually, that's kind of what I was going to talk about.
Okay, talk about it.
That something recent that you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because,
yeah.
Well, the thing that I wanted to reference was a video that I had seen like 10 years ago. And I remember it's like an 8-hour lecture. And at the very end, he talks about how how there's a black hole at the center of the sun, and he shows video of objects going in and out of the sun and suggests that they're UFOs. And he also shows that when they go in, they go out at, like, the opposite pole.
Mm-hmm.
And when you focus in, they're at the sunspots. You can see, like, fire being sucked in.
Yeah, that's the energy. That's the energy that they say. You know, these things, though, you realize are bigger than the Earth.
Yeah.
I mean, these UFOs that he claims he's taken or he's getting shots of are bigger than the Earth.
Yeah.
Those are big UFOs.
Exactly.
So do you believe what he's shown? Do you think those are huge spaceships out in space going in and out of the sun?
I think it's definitely possible.
Uh-huh. You think that's maybe why they've sent a probe up there, because they want to observe? I mean, it seems to me this is once again another scenario taken out of the page of Rendezvous with Rama from Arthur Clarke. You know, we have something come in from the solar system that it's a spaceship like a Muamua, and then we freak out about it. And then what do? We send a probe to the sun because we want to find out what these guys want with us.
Well, I kind of think it's probably happening all the time.
What's happening all the time?
I mean, things coming in and out
of the sun,
solar system.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And who knows what? Really?
Well, who knows what's parked in the Jovian system? I mean, there could be things parked right outside of Jupiter or right in the area of Saturn, and we wouldn't know that. They could be waiting with their armada, getting the clues to when they're going to move in and attack, have some sort of an alien attack. The Vanguard moves in and we're going to be helpless because, I mean, look, you've got those fast radio bursts that are firing off and they're saying, well, those could be the flashes of engines of spacecraft. And I'm thinking, whoa, that means we may have some big ass spaceships out there that could bounce on us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a little creepy to think about, but that's not me saying that. That's science saying that. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
It all depends on who you believe. If you believe the scientists, which, by the way, scientists are not always right, but it just is weird that we have scientists leaning towards some of these stories of huge spaceships in space, solar weapons, and gosh, I could just go down the list of everything we've covered in the past few days that to me are just like, it's just, I don't know. I wasn't planning on going there, but I'm going there because everybody's telling me that this is what it is. And I'm glad you're there with you're there with me in this roller coaster ride. And I invite you to call in tonight. So please give us a call. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero, lighting it up for you tonight. Right here, don't go away. We'll be back. I'm not a follower of QAnon. I don't follow QAnon. I find my own research. But somebody said, Clyde, you need to pay attention to QAnon. And so they gave me something to look into, and I'm looking into it now, and it's very interesting. I did not know this happened. Yesterday, this was posted on QAnon, and I think it's very timely when you consider all the things we're talking about right now. And I want you to pay attention, okay? And I don't know if I'm going to follow this up. I don't know what I'm going to say about it, but I'm just going to tell you now what was said. Okay, so QAnon, people who follow QAnon, are very, very animate. I call it like the techno cult because they are just, they're cult-like in their devotion and following of QAnon. And I don't think QAnon's a real person. I think QAnon's a bot. I think QAnon responds to algorithms, and it certainly, it makes you wonder because, everybody says, well, it's a real person and it has inside information. I have my doubts, but still, for those of you that want to believe that QAnon exists, I have something I want to share with you. Yesterday, QAnon had dropped some pretty bombshell posts. And to see if Q is an insider, if Q is an insider, he basically said that there is an existence of a secret space program. And he confirmed extraterrestrial life. Now, the two posts opened big doors for the millions of people who follow Q, because, usually Q gives them just a tidbit and, man, they go to town. Q is like the techno version of Nostradamus, in my opinion. He just, whoever Q is, inside information on Donald Trump, inside information on movements of people and individuals. And the people are Q fans. I'd love to have your opinion on this. So what happened is that people send questions to Q, okay? And somebody, and I'm looking at this right now, it doesn't have an exact name here. It's an anonymous name. There's just IDs where they're asking. This is September 19, 2018, 19:10:44 Eastern Standard Time. Q. Are we alone? Roswell? His answer, no. Highest classification, consider the vastness of space. Q. Now, Q's response makes it clear that we're not alone and that the truth about the Roswell flying saucer crash has the highest classification. The response is significant since it affirms that a senior official with the Canadian government's Department of Communications reported back in 1950 when he was inquired about the Roswell crash. He basically said, and this was a guy, he says, the matter of the most highly classified subject of the United States government was the Roswell crash. It was even more secret than the H-bomb. So, perhaps anticipating some skepticism, Q further goes on and says, well, consider the vastness of space, guys. I mean, realize that our galaxy and the universe is, well, it's certainly to be teeming with life, some of which is technologically evolved sufficiently to travel through our galaxy and visit the Earth. And, of course, that all goes back to the Roswell crash again, because we wonder if that was a secret space or some sort of a spacecraft or a secret space program that was created by the Nazis. So then another statement. Here's the second post from September 19th. Q responded to a number of questions about secret space programs, and this is what he said. He said, let's see, Q, question. Here's a question for Q. Did NASA fake the moon landings? Have we been able, let's try that again. Did NASA fake the moon landings? Have we been to the moon since then? Are there secret space programs? Is this why Space Force was created? False moon landings are real. Programs exist that are outside of the public domain. Q. Now, in stating the moon landings are real, Q is refuting conspiracy theories that the moon landings were hoaxed. And this removes an impediment to the general public learning the truth about what has been really happening on the moon subsequent to the Apollo moon missions and the moon landings. So in the statement that Q made, Q affirms the existence of space programs that are, quote, outside of the public domain. And this means that Q wants his followers to understand that the information on these non-public domain space programs is highly classified and restricted to those with need-to-know access. Now, furthermore, you look further into it, and what Q's doing is he, once again, is alerting his followers to the fact that much information about these secret space programs is found in the private corporate domain, as we've reported on this program, and not necessarily in the hands of the U.S. government and military services. Now, we talked about skunk works. We talked about how everything during the Nixon purge was pushed into the private sector. So what we have here is we have, for what it's worth, Q giving information. I mean, I know that Q is not explicitly, talking about how the secret space program is Donald Trump's Space Force initiative. But it can be inferred from Q's reply that this is related to the existence of secret space programs, secret weapons that may be used, similar to what Sam had talked about, if so. And so this is the first time Q has explicitly referred to secret space programs, because before, Q has alluded to secret space programs being involved in intercepting a ballistic missile attack in Hawaii. He claimed that, when that Hawaiian alarm went off, they intercepted the missile. Well, it can be expected that Q will reveal a little more to the general public because, of course, this is what Q does. But I just think for all the Q fans out there that once again, we have this alleged insider, this Q clearance insider that's telling us everything we need to know about secret space programs, telling us everything we need to know about UFOs and aliens and all of that. And in the meantime, people, no need to speculate, they're hearing about all of this in many locales, and information seems to be dropping into the laps of people, namely me and others, as we try to unravel what is really going on behind the scenes and trying to break the false narrative that was created with regard to what happened in Sunspot, New Mexico. The idea that not only are we observing strange things in the skies, but we've been observing new planets like planet Vulcan. We've been kind of tickling the toes, if you will, talking about Planet X, talking about how Planet X is arriving, or the Planet 9 has been discovered, that this may be Nibiru, this may be something. I mean, these are things that, before, some months before, some years before on the program, I would talk about this and people would say, oh, sure, that's not real. Oh, sure, that's fake. Oh, sure. Now we have oh, sure, meaning yes, it's sure. Yes, this is real. Yes, this is happening. And this is something fascinating because of all the denial that's been happening for so long. So I guess I'm curious as to how you are taking this information, because I'm completely blown away by it. Okay. Usually I have control over a topic. I have control over what I'm broadcasting to you. I do not have control over this information. This information is like a small snowball gaining more snow and more snow and more snow. How it's going to end up, I do not know. But what I do know is that this is something that's out of my control now. And so this information, I mean, you've heard the calls of people talking about how the hacks could have happened. You're getting phone calls about how, the whole narrative that was brought up about Sunspot, New Mexico could have been taken right out of the X-Files. And whether or not it's been taken out of the X-Files is anyone's guess, but it certainly doesn't make sense that a black helicopter or a bunch of FBI black-suited black men in black show up and they basically are doing this for a janitor that's downloaded kiddie porn. It just doesn't make sense to me. And so we have information that's given on this program, something that maybe we shouldn't have tapped into. We haven't gotten into much detail about it. That's okay. It's okay. But we've got other people with clearances that have come on this program to talk. Richard Hoagland came on this program and talked about it. So after all said and done, after all the broadcasts and all the stuff that we've done where I've had no control of this, I guess I'm opening the phones to you. And we're going to open up a couple lines right now. So if you had a hard time getting in, now's your chance to get in and give me your information and what you feel about these stories. Because I tell you what, everything that I prepared cannot even compare to what has been delivered tonight by Richard Hoagland. Can't compare to anything that's been delivered by Sam, Christopher Fontenot, you name it. It just can't be done. I mean, Christopher Fontenot did a whole show giving us all the lowdown on all the specifics, torsion fields, everything. Hoagland talked about torsion fields. I mean, I guess they have the power, don't they? It appears so. I mean, with what happened in July 20th of this year, what happened over Siberia, they blocked the sun, made it dark for 3 hours. They have powers to do this now. It's like, once again, they're faking an apocalypse, or at least they're generating enough angst and anger and anxiousness, anxiety, to make you think that this is the end times, that this is something that is unheard of. But now we're knowing the truth. Now we're hearing the truth. Little by little, bit by bit, we're exposing what happened in Sunspot, New Mexico. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. We'll be back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away.
FM News 101 KXL.
Let's go to Scott in Ohio. Hi, Scott. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde.
Hey, man.
Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you.
Hoagland didn't really say that or deny Planet X. He maybe didn't want to talk about it. But the interesting thing is that we know that the entire solar system is being affected by something. And, even Sam said that, okay, we have these weapons way beyond, anything we can imagine. Let's say he's right. He did say that they can only affect the surface of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And so that doesn't mean that we could change the actual way the sun fires, or that necessarily the way the sun behaves. And what's interesting is he said the surface. And we have these pictures out that you were talking about from the lady who said it looks like UFOs going into the sun here recently. And I agree with you. It looks like something's being projected out, from the sun, like an explosion and of some sort that maybe happened on the surface. And I can remember maybe 3 or 4 years ago a report from Fox News, and they had a scientist on there, and he was explaining that these holes that we see in the corona aren't maybe, he said maybe are not necessarily what we think. They may be pieces of crust. And he showed ejections from the sun that looked exactly like what this lady is showing, and she's calling UFOs. And he said, we're lucky because if this was facing us when it happened, we would have been toast.
Oh, yeah, we would have. Sure.
So, I mean, just because we have these things, it doesn't necessarily rule out that there's something larger out there affecting the sun and affecting the whole solar system as well. And it could be that we're trying to mitigate some of those things with some of this technology. I don't know. But it's blowing my mind, too, because it's hard to argue that, anything about the New Mexico thing. I mean, I think, it's very plausible the way you guys are describing it.
Well, I mean, yeah, for me, it was unbelievable. First, it was unbelievable. Then the explanation came from Chris Fontenot, and that was like, wow, that's, I was just geeking out to that show. And then now Hoagland comes on. Now, Hoagland wanted to come on and talk about space tourism. He wanted to talk about, Elon Musk flying to the moon. He wanted to be on the moon. He wanted to go on that moon shot. He wanted to talk about planet Vulcan, but we just started talking about New Mexico. And when I played him the Sam call, he immediately wanted to focus on that because he knew what was going on with that. And then he brought up Siberia, and I'm just like going, this is amazing. People who hear this, who know, will comment, and when they comment, they'll give you the information that you're looking for. And so, once again, I'm at a position in my show where it's not that I don't like losing control of my show. It's not that I hate it, but it's certainly weird when it happens because then I have to actually come around and actually. Go and quickly do research or quickly try to find some sort of a reference to back up what's being said, because that means, well, he said it, I better make sure there's some backup. Otherwise, he's saying something that's erroneous. I don't want to give any erroneous information. So while he's dropping bombs, I'm sitting here in the background going, well, I got to find this, I got to find this, I got to find this. So it doesn't it's not all in a box. It's not ready to go. It's not prepared. So it's like, you're serving turkey dinner and somebody comes in and they says, I don't want turkey, I want cheeseburgers. And that's what happened tonight.
Well, but still, it doesn't, it's just another path that you opened up about the New Mexico thing. It doesn't say that the Planet X scenario isn't happening because, look at what's going on. The Earth is opening up. We're getting all these asteroids, And that's why I pose the question, okay, if let's say the technology is there, can we really control things right now to the point where if something like a Planet X was actually feeding off the sun right now or close enough to it to be affecting the whole solar system, could we do anything about it with this stuff?
No, but, well, maybe. Maybe we can focus on it, and we do have the Death Star powers. You ever thought that maybe, we have the Death Star powers? That's the thing that's most interesting. The moon is really a Death Star or something. I don't know. It certainly, it's certainly, I heard somebody, they talk about, was it on the air tonight? Maybe, I don't know, so many things have happened about some metallic spaceship. It was a sphere that was seen in front of the sun. And I'm like going, sounds like the Death Star. So we're back to the idea that maybe something out there could obliterate something. We're talking about something, though, that's bigger than the Earth if it's coming outside of the sun. That's the thing that's most interesting about these UFOs.
Yeah, and the thing that you say Death Star, do you recall seeing any of these green laser beams coming out from the South Pole?
I've heard of that. Or you can take a look at Mimas. Is that the name? Mimas, the moon? I think it's Mimas is the name of it. You look at Mimas, M-I-M-A-S, Mimas. I think that's how you spell it.
One that actually looks like the Death Star?
It does look like the Death Star. It's Saturn's, it's Saturn's moon. Saturn 1 is what it's called. The moon of Saturn, Mimas. They call it Saturn 1. And it looks like the Death Star. It's got the portal and everything where they can fire. And so if you guys have a moment, MIMAS, Saturn 1, the moon of Saturn, looks like the Death Star. It looks like it had the crap kicked out of it, too. Anyway, so, hey, man, thanks for the call. Great call today, Scott.
Thanks, Clyde. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Yeah. Mimas. MIMAS. Go there. Look it up. It's amazing. We'll be back. Let's go to Diana in Texas. Hi, Diana. Diana, you're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde. Something is up.
Okay.
Earlier you were talking, actually I want to comment on the quick Q thing before I go into the Sunspot information.
Okay.
But Q put out that it was fake, that the moon, what was the statement he made now? I forgot.
He said the moon landing wasn't faked.
No, he said fake. Never mind, skip Q. Actually, it was the opposite of that.
Well, that just came out. It said the moon landing wasn't faked, unless he said it before that it was faked, which once again would prove my point that it's a bot. Yeah. But then again.
He put the fake before the statement. The fake moon landings are real. The fake moon landings are real.
He said the fake moon landings are real.
That was the statement. Fake moon landings real.
Okay.
Well, anyway, skip that one.
All right.
But the sunspot images, have you seen the ones, they look like for lack of a better word, they look like a breast?
No, I've not seen that.
Okay. Or they look like an iris to an eye?
I've seen those, yes.
Okay. Well, that's actually a constellation that's on the elliptical. And when you were talking earlier about Saturn and Jupiter, you know how they make the images of the stars into like the Virgin and the Lion, and then...
Right, but this coronal hole was in a coronosphere and it wasn't a constellation.
Well, actually, I don't know.
It wasn't.
It looks just like the one that comes after Michael holding the serpent kaput.
You talking about Ophiuchus?
I don't know. I think it's called Southern something. I have a crinkle on.
Well, the snake handler in the stars is called Ophiuchus. It's the little known house in the zodiac.
Right.
So I don't know if that's what you're seeing, but chances are a coronal hole is something that happens all the time, and it certainly does. I mean, it just means the coronosphere is cool. That's all it means, and it means if it's cool like that, that's going to fire eventually. It's like watching a tsunami before it happens.
So on the elliptical after serpent kaput and Michael holding the serpent in two pieces is an image of the Iris constellation. And I think, I can't read the name of it. I think it's called like Southern Trust or South Trust or South Truth or something along that line. But it looks just like the images that have come out that they've attributed to Sunspot.
Going back to Q.
Yeah.
Did NASA fake the moon landings? Have we been to the moon since then? Are there secret space programs? Is this why the Space Force was created? False, comma, moon landings are real. Not false moon landings are real. False, comma, moon landings are real. Programs exist that are outside the public domain. Q.
Right. False moon landings are...
Yeah, there's a comma. False. Moon landings are real.
But if it was a statement of false, it would have been a separation, a period. It wouldn't be false moon landings are real.
Well, it doesn't say false moon landings are real. It says false, comma, moon landings are... Hey, look, I don't believe it happened in 1969 either, but he says false, comma, moon landings are real. That's what he said. I mean, he believes whatever Q said. Q said the moon landings were real.
Interesting.
Yeah, so... No, that's... I mean, it's either... it's a period or a comma. It's such small print, I can't even tell. But it's, yeah, false, period, moon landings are real, or false, comma, moon landings are real, not false moon landings are real.
Well,
that'd be a weird way. That'd be like Yoda talking, you know. False moon landings are real. It just doesn't make sense.
As I was watching it go down live, that I just started laughing because I was like, there he goes. He tells us the false moon landings are real. But it was after I had watched the clips that they had put together from the Texas University of the fake stuff, the moon landing.
Mm-hmm.
And that had just come out like 2 hours before the Q thing. So that's how I took it. I was like, oh, that's...
Well, if Q is confusing or Q-fusing, then we know that, you know, I just have my skepticism about Q. I always have, because I just think that a good old algorithm can fool people into thinking that it's some all-knowing computer.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, so I just read that because I wanted Q people to understand that even Q is in on what's going on. He's talking about secret space programs and all kinds of other things. So it's just something I wanted to put as an aside.
Now, if somebody does some research on that Revelations 12:5 elliptical pattern and sees that image of the sunspot images coming out, it's right there, right after the scales of justice.
I remember one time there was a coronal hole that looked like the Tetragrammaton, which, of course, is the symbol of God, a big triangle in the middle of the circle.
Well, actually, that's funny because the stars actually in that constellation make a triangle.
Interesting. Well, that's God speaking. That's God speaking. If you believe in the geometrics of God and the sacred geometria and math and everything else, it's God's all mathematics. They say. Diana, thanks for the call. Let's go to Aaron in California. Hi, Aaron. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde. Thanks for keeping me up at night.
You bet.
Well, to the point. Do you remember about 2 weeks ago you were talking about China and how they want to be the big cyber bully on the block?
Yeah, well, they want to own everything, the Internet of Things, everything. Yes.
Okay. What I think happened at Soho was correct. There was bad actors. I think that we demonstrated to Russia, guess what we can do? Okay, Putin goes away and with his tail between his legs and is freaked out or whatever. Now we have the Soho event about a week after the cyberbullying awareness issue.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that the Chinese hacked Soho through the post office or used the post office as a scapegoat, another location other than the real location.
Oh, so you're saying that you don't mean Soho, you mean Sunspot.
Yeah, Sunspot, correct. Yeah, Sunspot. Yeah. My bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think that the Chinese operated through the post office and hacked there and then hacked into Sunspot to validate what Putin experienced with the corona hole in the sun by Sunspot's technological capabilities. That's what I think what happened there.
Interesting. So that you are thinking that this is retribution for, or at least the opportunity to use the sun as we did back in July, where the sun went dark for 3 days over Siberia.
Right. I think this was the Chinese verifying we did do that through their ways and means of cyberbullying, to call it.
So they were investigating it. The information was there, held at Sunspot. They didn't want anybody to know about how we tinkered with the sun over Siberia. And so this is what you think happened. They don't want they wanted to cover it up.
No, the Chinese wanted to verify. Oh, yeah. Our side, we always try to play down that kind of stuff because that creates awareness too. And, they don't want to have a domino, then a domino, and a domino effect happening. In other words, this event leads to why did this happen? And then people like you and me and other researchers, we go research, and then we find other dominoes, which leads to the reality of corona mass injection manipulation, to call it, and then weather wars to boot. Because it is interesting, like Sam, that great caller Sam, said that something was going to happen with the storm that was Florence.
Mm-hmm.
And it did happen. It went from Cat, whatever it was, 3 or 4, down to 2, and then it became a big rainstorm, basically. That's pretty. I know hurricanes do dwindle when they get near land. I mean, that's common. That's common with a common practice with hurricanes to a certain extent, as opposed to on land tornadoes.
Right.
But the fact that it got that big of a storm as it was still dwindled down to just annoying rain. That's a pretty interesting thing. And I myself was interested in HAARP way back when Dr. Nick Begich came on the scene with his book.
Right.
And I went through his book. And, I there's no doubt in my mind that we've got it. The Chinese have got something. They've been working on theirs. I was watching some interesting footage about that reactor in Russia that went down. I And I think there was a HARP facility in one of the shots right next to it. I think people didn't see it because, man, it looked like Tesla technology or something like that.
Right.
There was a weird structure. It had domes on it, like weather radar domes or something like that. And I think that was one of their HARP facilities or ELF radar facility, something like that. And the fact that it's next to a nuclear power plant makes me more intrigued about the location of everything. In other words, you know that they need we discussed on the air on your show, they need gigawatts of energy. And a power plant like that, the nuclear power plant, would be perfect to get the gigawatts of energy to do their weather modification warfare stuff, if that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So the bottom line is, with respect to Sunspot and being secured by the FBI, I think the Chinese were showing what they can do, or were trying to obtain data with respect to the sunspot activity that we did on the sun.
By the way, I got this just in. 4 new disturbances have been detected in the Atlantic Ocean now. They're being tracked by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Once again, we go back to the idea, 20% chance that they could wind up being hurricanes. Once again, some of these storms that are starting up are remnants of Hurricane Florence. So what we're seeing is maybe Florence gave birth to a child, or giving birth to child storms. It says here, hurricane forecaster NOAA identified 2 separate weather systems in 5-day graphical tropical weather outlooks yesterday, adding another 2 to its latest bulletin, 7 p.m. BST. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Heavy flooding from the hurricane Atlantic Ocean continues to devastate North Carolina, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see. They say here, Disturbance 3 has a 50% chance of becoming a tropical cyclone within 5 days after NOAA upgraded 40% in the earlier forecast. As of 7 p.m., the update read, conditions are expected to be conducive for the low to acquire some subtropical or tropical characteristics, and subtropical or tropical cyclone could form late this weekend or early next week, while the low meanders over the central Atlantic Ocean. Forecasters attributing the weather system strengthening to a non-tropical low-pressure system that developed and is coming from Bermuda, making the storm powerful in the Atlantic. So it looks like we may have another hurricane on the coast. It just depends. There's a 20% chance now. Then there's another one. See, this one they're talking about is still formed just outside of of where Florence was. So this is some remnants of Florence. But then the other one that's coming up is now forming in Bermuda, I believe. Just saying, about 750 miles east of the Windward Islands in the Caribbean. So it would be like a 1-2, 1-2-3 punch if that happened. But we'll find out, I guess, by Monday if anything is going to actually happen. So beware.
Well, just one thing real quick. Remember, Trump is talking about putting tariffs on Chinese products, in a sense, as to my understanding of the recent news stuff cycles have been going through.
Right.
And this could be some kind of retribution to that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you never know. I mean, you follow the news, you see how we're treating China. I'm sure China can send a storm our way. After all, we may have sent a storm their way when it hit Hong Kong. So, I don't know. Weather war. If you care to accept it, there is a weather war going on. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
Let's go to Chris in Oregon. Hi, Chris. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde. How's it going?
Good. How are you, man?
Good, man. Finally, it was good to put the voice to the face up in East City that weekend.
So cool to meet you. So cool to meet you.
Sure, dude.
Yeah.
Hey, first off, so I would definitely throw some money down on Florence circling back around and kind of coming together with what's shooting up from Bermuda to turn into something else that's going to be exponential on the East Coast there.
Yeah, I would think that, we may be seeing, strike 2 or, something like it.
Definitely. One more thing before I go. Do you think Mike Pence or maybe Trump has heard the space song yet?
I can bet they have. Yes.
I sure hope so, man, because I'm sure they got a kick out of it.
Yeah, I'm sure they've heard it. I mean, because I play it on my show, and I know that Donald listens every once in a while to the show. I know because I did a big boo-boo. I should have had him on the show, but he asked if he could come on my show, and I told him no. It was when he was running for president. It was, oh, come on, you would have had him on. I go, no, because we're not a political show, I told him. I said, I'm not gonna be endorsing a candidate. I'm not going to do it. I also did that to, oh, God, what was that guy's name? The millionaire that ran, Ross Perot. I did the same thing to Ross Perot. Ross Perot one time wanted to come on my morning show when I was in Ogden, Utah. And I told him, yeah, okay, whatever. And then I said, nah. And so right when he called, he says, Ross will go on. I said, I don't want Ross on. Because I just don't like, putting people on, a politician on because it makes you sound like you're leaning to one side or one other. And since there's no fairness doctrine, I wouldn't want to push the limits of credulity in that regard. So, Chris.
Oh, yeah, everyone's all about the Me You movement or Me Too or whatever,
Yeah, you say one thing, they think you're another thing, and it's just a mess. Chris, thank you so much for coming out to ECETI. Nice meeting you, and hope to talk to you soon. Take care. Love you, man. Bye-bye. Right. Good night, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. Don't go anywhere. Just come back, okay?